Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call to order uh, the Operations Committee meeting for January the 12th, 2021. Has roll call been taken?
Yes, and we have quorum.
Thank you. Are there any disclosure of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof? Seeing none, I need a mover and seconder for the adoption of the minutes of the previous meeting, November the 10th. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Bennett, Councillor Keller. Is there any questions or comments on those minutes? Seeing none, all in favor as presented? It's carried. Thank you. There's no delegations. We're into item 6, Public Works and Engineering Department, and I will call on Mr. Perkins to proceed with the department report. Mr. Perkins, please.
Perfect. Good morning, all. Thank you very much, Chair. And through you to committee. Under information items, number 1 is the Township of Greater Madawaska request. So on Friday, November 28th, 2020, staff from the County of Renfrew, myself, Mr. Hanrath, Acting Manager of Infrastructure, and Mr. Brett Kidd, Acting Infrastructure Coordinator, met with Mayor Hunt and the staff of the Township of Greater Madawaska, Ms. Renee Mass, Deputy Treasurer, Deputy CAO Clerk, and Mr. Luc Desarzen, Manager of Planning and Development. The following items of concern were discussed. So there was a grant application for Eagle's Nest parking. The tabled letter was provided to the Township of Greater Madawaska in support of funding grant application. The Township intends to submit for a parking lot along County Road 508, Calabogie Road, in the area of the Eagle's Nest Trail. As a requirement of the grant, the Township must own or lease the land. Currently, the county has a 46-meter right-of-way in that area. So that's actually 23 meters from center line. And a request from the Township to investigate the possibility of leasing this section of the right-of-way is underway. Item B is the County Road 508 drainage issue. So staff were advised of a drainage issue along County Road 508 on Calabogie Road at civic address 1101 Francis Street, which is the Calabogie Medical Center. And staff have committed to examining this with possible solutions.
Good morning, Janice. You're muted.
Good morning. Yes, good morning. The county sent me the February meeting info. I don't know why, but anyways, that's why I couldn't hook up, obviously, because it's not February. So good morning and thank you.
Yeah, we've just started in, Janice, and we're just into the very first item under information and Lee's report in regards to the Township of Greater Madawaska requests. So I'll get Lee to carry on from there. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, through you, Chair, and welcome, Councillor TJ. Item 2 is the traffic control system. So attached as Appendix 1 is the traffic control system study that was completed by Parthon Engineering Limited and Thompson Technologies for the management of traffic control, management of traffic during closures of Highway 417 or 17 and using the emergency detour routes in the town of Arnprior, and for the management of traffic as it enters and exits the garrison in Petawawa, in the town of Petawawa. Staff are implementing the recommendations over the next 5 years as budget allows for signal upgrades in Arnprior and Petawawa. Item 3 is hardened shoulders request for County Road 30 or Lake Dory Road. Table is a request from the Ottawa Valley Cycling Association for consideration for hardening shoulders to be included as part of the rehabilitation plan in 2021-2022 on County Road 30 between Trailblazers Road and St. John's Church in Golden Lake. The request comes from the concerns of the OVCATA is receiving from cyclists and walkers due to large volume of cars and large trucks occurring along the road. Item 4 is Highway 17 and County Road 508 interchange. So tabled is correspondence from the Honorable Carolyn Mulrooney, Minister of Transportation, advising that the ministry is currently undergoing the process to procure a design builder for the intersection. And with that, Chair, I'll ask for any questions from those four, and then we'll move on.
Thank you, Mr. Perkins. We'll just go back and see if there's any questions on those items under information. Item number 1A. Any questions or comments on that first part of information? 1B. Councillor Hunt, please.
Yes, through you, Chair, to Lee. Lee, is that the drainage issue, is that going to be addressed in 2021?
Mr. Perkins?
Thank you, and through you, Chair, to Councillor Hunt. My understanding right now is Taylor and his group are looking at it, so it'll definitely be looked at in this next summer construction season. Now, whether or not they can solve it or not will be one thing, but because as you know, the road's going to be rehabilitated in a little later on. So, but anyways, I'm assuming that they'll look at it and see what they can do.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anything else on item 1A or B? Item 2, traffic signal control. Councillor Lynch, please.
Thank you, Chair. To Lee, I know the EDR comes off of 17 at Madawaska that comes up on 1529, but to get out of the town, does that go on Daniel Street or does it continue on toward River Road?
Mr. Perkins, please.
Through you, Chair.
I'm trying to think of the signs too. I've seen them a million times on Madawaska, but I'm trying to think where I turn left to get back onto the highway.
Yeah, so the detour route now is through Campbell Drive. So when you come off at Daniel Street, you turn left, and then you go out to Campbell Drive, and then that's the approved EDR. So because we fiddled around with moving it around Aaron Pryor, and anyways, that was the best route, was to go out Campbell Drive and then back onto the highway. So now the next phase of Highway 17, 417 will have to be looked at again for next EDR. But yeah, so the actual lights at basically the Tim Hortons, and then the next set are up out of the truck stop. So that's what Parathon's looking at for us, for if there is an incident, we can move traffic through faster.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else on item 2, traffic signal control? Item 3, Head and Shoulders request. Warden Robinson, please.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm just checking to see, is a plan to do Head and Shoulders when we do the rehabilitation of County Road 30? And if so, are we going to let these folks know that that's the plan?
Perkins, please.
Thank you, Chair, and through you to Warden. Right now, staff, Taylor's group again is looking at it. Our policy is anywhere that we can do it without significant realignment of the road, we do. So, and that's what we explained to Ron and Ish and the gentleman from the Cycling Association. So once Taylor gets his 2021 budget nailed down for that, we'll find out if it's going to require, because we prefer Head and Shoulders ourselves, obviously, and anywhere we can do it, we will do it. So we'll know more once Taylor gets his 2021 tenders out and so forth. Sorry, and we will get back to him.
Thank you. Anything else on item 3? Item 4, the Highway 17 and County Road 508 interchange. I'll just make a comment on that. I know they've started doing a lot of the preliminary work around that area. In my conversations with Minister Yakubuski, he thought that there would be shovels in the ground in 2021, which I'm still hoping for, is that interchange there. Well, it'll probably take 2.5 years to build it, and it's badly needed on 417. Well, 17 now, and 417 in the very near future. Nothing else on those 4 items? Mr. Perkins, resolutions, please.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. Item 5 is the Public Works and Engineering Department draft 2021 budget, and I'll read the recommendation, and then we can. So the recommendation here is that the Operations Committee recommend that the draft 2021 Public Works and Engineering budget be approved by this committee and forwarded to the January 18, 2021 County Council Budget Workshop for approval.
I think, and my apologies here, I think in order to get the discussion on the floor, I need a mover and seconder. Keller, Councillor Bennett, thank you. Questions, comments? I think Mr. Foss is going to come on and give us some more information about the budget for Operations Committee. Mr. Foss, please.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning to the Operations Committee. I've asked permission from the host to be able to share my screen and begin the discussion of the budget. So if it's okay with you folks, I'm going to try and just do that now. And if that worked, you should see my screen. I think it's page 18 of your package, which begins the discussion of the 2021 budget. Although as we walk through all of the budgets with each of the committees, it will be the directors that are speaking to you and discussing each of the various elements of their budgets. I thought specifically for the Public Works budget, I might begin the discussion. You can see that for the Operations Committee, there really is only one department that is reporting through to the Operations Committee, and that's the Public Works Department. So we'll have a little closer look at what that department means. Within Public Works, you'll see a number of columns. Item number 1 is, we call it a budget pressure column. In other words, these are some projects or elements of the Public Works budget that cannot be accommodated within the council direction of maintaining a 2.5% increase in the levy dollars. We have a 2021 budget, 2020 budget, variance, and then from 2019 back to 2015, we have some historical information for you. The most surprising item, of course, is the very top line, when it does appear that we have a major reduction within the Public Works budget of $8.5 million, but you'll also note at the bottom of the page, we have a significant increase in a transfer from reserves of about $8 million. And I thought if it's okay with you, Chair, I'll just explain that issue, and then I'll go back to the beginning of the department and allow my colleague, Mr. Perkins, to walk you through the discussion of the budget. But with that said, I'll just go to the very last page, or page 22 of your package, when we look at revenues. And in this section, you have the municipal contribution that's going to the Public Works Department, and it's divided into 2 components. That is operating costs as well as capital expenditures. And what you'll see is the capital expenditure line item has been removed within this department, and it's actually reflected elsewhere within the budget inside the general revenue fund under the financial expense area. And the reason simply for that is that Public Works Department is really the only department where historically we are financing a significant number of capital projects directly from the levy. And that works very well as long as we can accomplish all of those projects within any given fiscal period. If we don't, or if we cannot accomplish those projects, then of course we've levied our ratepayers for capital projects that did not move forward, and we are then creating a surplus, which automatically transfers to a year-end working capital reserve. But the fact of the matter is we are levying dollars that potentially are at times unspent, given the variety of challenges that we have with road construction projects. And so what we've done this year in the budget is we've realigned the Public Works Department to be the same as all other departments within the county of Renfrew, and that is we finance all of their capital projects directly from reserves or from federal or provincial subsidies. So you will see that the line item that remains is their contribution to, pardon me, the contribution to operating costs, which comes in at 1.6% over the contribution for operating costs in 2021. This $8.376 million then, as I mentioned, is transferred over to the General Revenue Fund. And you'll see that number again. I'm just going to highlight this a little bit bigger for you in the reserve section. There we go. You'll see that there's our contribution to capital coming in from the General Revenue Fund for Public Works, and we're using all of those dollars, within this particular budget. So those dollars did not disappear from the Public Works Department. They are still there, but we are now going to finance all of the capital program for Public Works exactly the same way as we do for all departments, and that is a transfer from reserves. If a capital works project does not get completed or does not move ahead, the money simply stays in reserves and it's available for that same project in a subsequent fiscal period. So Chair, perhaps with that, just lead in, just so we explain the significant change in total municipal dollars within the Public Works Department. I might turn this back over to my colleague, and I'll move up to the beginning of this budget document and ask Mr. Perkins then to lead the discussion moving forward.
Thank you, Jeff. Mr. Perkins, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Foss, and through you to committee. Of course, obviously, the biggest concerns for us were the pressures with the $500,000. So what committee will see for that is what we had done was to try to get our winter control budget to the 2.5%. It actually comes out to 2.3%, and it's at 2.165. But the issue is the 5-year rolling average. So from 2019, 2018, and these are the actual numbers. The actuals were, the actual amount was 2.394 million. So what we've done is in order to keep within our 2.3% increase, we've budgeted 2021 at 2.165, knowing full well that the 5-year rolling average is approximately 250,000 less than what we need. So we're actually asking that as the budget pressure. And then the other 250,000, we're actually asking to rebuild our reserves. We have no winter reserves anymore. If you'll recall, at the end of 2019, we used what reserves there were to cover off the winter season from the previous year. So we're asking for that 250 to be put back. So a total of 500,000 actually for 250 for this year's winter control, and then 250 to be put into reserves. And also, if you scroll down a little further, Jeff, you'll see $100,000 there as a budget pressure for the emergency radio system. So this has been an ongoing issue for a number of years now. We're trying to, all the fire departments, we're trying to get them to one system. And I'm actually working with EMS to help and guide. So the theory here is that the county buys the radio system. It's going to be a universal system that for all the fire departments in the county for the lower tier. And the theory is that we are actually going to recover that 100,000 by charging them once we get the systems installed. But again, this has been ongoing for a number of years, and it's an in and out actually. It should be if we do get it, if we do get anywhere. And with that said, if there's any more questions on the actual operation budget, I do have a small presentation for committee for our capital project, just to show you what we're doing and where they are. So if there's any questions regarding operations.
I can't see the whole screen right now. Does anyone have a question in the operating part of the budget that's just been covered?
Chair, I believe Warden Robinson and Councillor Bennett have their hand up.
Okay, Warden Robinson, please, and then Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Chair. And through you to Lee, the communication radio system that you're talking about, a number of years ago, there was a big issue with the various fire departments, analog versus digital, dispatch, the whole gamut was up for discussion. So the system that you're suggesting that we purchase and then basically sell to the other municipalities, has that been discussed with the fire chiefs across the county to make sure that what we're going to purchase is something they're actually going to buy into?
Thank you, Madam. Sorry.
Mr. Perkins, please.
Thank you, Madam Warden, and Chair, through you to Madam Warden. I have not met with the chiefs at all yet. So that's one of the things that I actually had planned last year, and then COVID occurred. So my understanding, it's very difficult to get consensus amongst them. So I'm actually working with Deputy Chief Brian Leahy to help me. So once we've, we need to meet with the chiefs first to see where we go. So the theory is we would get one system, but it's been very contentious. And as you may know, it's been ongoing for a number of years. So the first goal is to meet the chiefs and go from there.
Thank you. Councillor
may
Bennett,
supplement-
please. Oh, sorry.
Just supplementary, so there'll be no purchase of this radio system then, Lee, until you have the conversation with the fire chiefs? Is that what I'm hearing? Okay, thank you.
Councillor Bennett, please.
Could we stop sharing the screen so we could see? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, I actually don't have a question anymore. Our warden's on top of the issue, and it was the exact question I was asked. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, Councillor Lynch.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Lynch. I couldn't see, I couldn't tell the difference between the palm of your hand and the top of your head.
And we're on live TV, right?
Yeah.
Lee, as you know, the town of Arnprior is on with the Brock radio people. So when you have the invite to the chiefs, appreciate you inviting our guys just to see if we can join as well. Thank you.
Yes, through you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Lynch. That I was hoping to meet with all 17 of them, but we'll see.
Councillor Hunt, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Through you to the Lee. A couple questions on the radio system. Would you expect to recover, if this goes forward, would you expect to recover it all within the year?
Thank you, Chair, and through you to Councillor Hunt. Actually, Councillor Hunt, I can't give you an honest answer because I haven't been involved in it enough yet. I just know that it's a contentious issue amongst the chiefs, and but that would be the goal. Would be once we did roll it out, we would get our revenue back, and I would try to do it in a fiscal year for sure. But I have no promises at this point. We just put it in the budget because we know it's a necessity for all the fire departments, and it's something that's been ongoing for a number of years.
Okay, thank you. And supplementary on the budget pressures, the $500,000 for winter control. Do you have any idea how 2020 turned out, or what your forecast is for winter control for 2020?
Mr. Perkins.
Thank you, Chair, and through you, actually, Mr. Foss will be able to conclude this a little better. Right now, we only have the November numbers, so it's January 22nd in that before he closes off the year. So we'll know more then. But as you know from your own municipalities, so far the fall has been very kind to us. So it'll certainly be a help. But when we did do this budget, as you can see, it was 2.117 that was spent in 2020, and that was up till October. So with that said, again, it was a mild winter, but what I did was for the rolling average, I used the actuals from 5 years, from 2019 back to 2014. So again, the rolling average for 5 years is 2.394 million. So that's why we're asking for 250. Sorry.
I think in there we did have a couple very extreme years. I guess, and then where you're putting transfer to reserve at 250. what number do you see that reserve growing to? What would you like that reserve to end up at?
Well, in 2019, it was only 343,000 or something, but I mean, myself personally, you know, like back looking through the actuals again, right? Like, so the worst year, of course, was 2018 actual, and it was 2.75 million that was spent. So having $500,000 in there would be a good cushion, I would think. And but again, not to have it just sitting there. That's no use to anyone. But again, that would be my opinion. So we figured if we started off with 250, we'd at least have something if the winter turned on us. Because again, as you know, winter may go from October till April, but in budget it goes from January to December. So
that's good.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if we're being much too aggressive here. Like in 2021 so far, our year has been kind to us as far as snow removal, sand and salt. And so that if we built a reserve, which I fully agree that we should, if we started the reserve and we happened to need it in 2021, we would have that reserve to call upon. So I'm personally not in favor of the 250 in winter control. I am in favor of some number going into transfer to reserve, but I think 250 is aggressive. Like to build that number up, I think we should be planning on doing that over a few years. So we're at 1.6. We probably have 80,000 or so that we could put in there without even creating a budget pressure. And then if we think we need some more, well, the difference maybe would be the budget pressure. So it seems a way too aggressive to me. Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Morrow, and then Warden Robinson.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to go back to Councillor Hunt's first question, and I actually was hoping that Mr. Foss could better explain the repayment for the radio system. Would that be done over the lifespan of the radio system, Mr. Foss, or would it be done on an annual basis?
Foss, please.
Thank you, Chair. As I think as Lee mentioned earlier, our goal to add this item into the budget document was simply to make sure that this committee was aware of the fact that this is an issue, it's on our radar, and the estimates for moving forward with a solution for the radio system could be $100,000. What we wanted to do in the budget document is to show is to not create a pressure in the budget, because our intention, if we move forward on some sort of a radio system for the fire departments, would be to recover some revenues to offset that expenditure. It's this committee and council's decision how they'd like to move forward with it. But if we were to purchase a radio system and have some sort of a multi-year repayment plan, we could look at that. Maybe there's some subsidy available to us, federally or provincially for emergency radio systems, and maybe that would be a financing option for us. So I think there's lots of things on the table. All we wanted to do is make sure it's on our radar. It's something that we would like to move forward with as far as a project goes. The financing of that is something that we could certainly deal with as time went on, but we didn't want to show that there was a municipal levy expenditure in 2021 because of the radio system. We wanted to simply show that the project is there and we'd move forward with it with some sort of a financing solution that would recover those costs.
Thank you. Supplementary, Mr. Morrow.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to ask committee and Mr. Foss a second question with respect to process today. So Jeff, so you know where I'm coming from. We've talked about presenting these budgets to committee and it being somewhat of a live document and making changes, but we do need, Chair, a process to manage that. So I've heard from Mr. Hunt in terms of, Councillor Hunt, in terms of his opinion with respect to the replenishment of the reserves. So, Jeff, I'm thinking, and I'm looking for your opinion here, Jeff, that we really should have a resolution if Mr. Hunt would like to make that amendment to the budget and then council would vote on those, and we would process those as we go along. Jeff, is that an agreeable process to you, sir?
Yeah, thank you, through you, Chair. So, it was council's direction back in the fall to move away from sort of a budget presentation process and make this very much a working meeting and a working committee and working document. And certainly, whatever this committee votes on in order to make changes to the budget, we will make those changes immediately and roll that up into the consolidated package that will be sent out this Friday. And that's the document that will be dealt with on Monday and Tuesday at the budget workshop. So certainly, we're going to have agreement by all of the committee about what changes or what they would like to see. But I am working in the background on my computer, and I'm ready to make any changes that committee wishes. So,
Thank you. I would like to hear from Warden Robinson. She's been waiting before we move ahead with that. Warden Robinson, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. And I actually have an opinion on both issues, the radio and the reserves. So first of all, the reserves at 250. Is there a possibility that if we do have surplus at the end of this year, that surplus could go towards the 250 so that we're not actually looking at an entire 250? We may be, that may be where Councillor Hunt was going, that if we designated a 250 with any surplus going towards that 250, that might soften the blow a bit. As far as the radios are concerned, and Lee, I'm totally in support of what you're doing. I understand it, but having, been around for a little while, not as long as some, but for a little while, I think it's probably going to take you a year just to talk to these folks to get to where you want to go. So to me, perhaps having a conversation with the fire chiefs across the county first, with the plan of perhaps doing something in 2022. That would be my opinion, to remove the 100,000 from the budget pressures at this point.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Bennett, please. Muted, Dave.
Yeah, I got it. Oh, yeah, I'm there, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I issue I have with Brian suggesting cutting the reserve down. It's really an unknown to us any year of how much it could be a cost overrun. And I think rather than have budget pressures a year down the road, I would like to see it covered this year. And like what the warden just said, I don't think you're going to use that 100,000 this year, because unless the other fire departments are different than mine, there has to be a buy-in here. And you're basically just taking your budget pressure and placing it on the municipality to support that radio system, that there's no buy-in from council or the fire department right now. So I think I kind of very leery about dropping the reserve down to 80 or 90,000 when the capability is there right now to ensure that we have ourselves covered for what may be in front of us, and maybe even in front of us the rest of this year, the spring to begin with. We have no idea what's down the road 2 weeks from now. So I'm kind of having a hard time supporting dropping it away down to there. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hunt, please.
Thank you. Perhaps I could ask this of through you, Chair, to Jeff. Jeff, if there is a surplus in 2020, where does that surplus go? Can it go to this reserve?
Well, thank you. Through you, Chair. So our current policy, council approved policy, is that any surplus in any department automatically accumulates into the working capital reserve. However, via a resolution of this committee that is then adopted by county council, we can preempt that for your department and dedicate, a portion of any surplus that's created in this year to be set aside as a first stage to a winter control reserve, whatever your number is, and then we can simply say the balance then would continue on to the working capital reserve as per council policy. So it's really up to this committee and county council. You can make those decisions as you wish and dedicate a portion of the surplus to creating a winter control reserve.
I guess as a supplementary then, do we have any feel on the forecast for this department for 2020?
That for winter control, Councillor
No,
Hunt?
the department in total.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Chair, and through you to Councillor Hunt. I don't understand the question, sorry.
Well, I'm just thinking if in the operations department, if we feel there is going to be a surplus, and we could make a recommendation that that surplus goes to the reserve fund, then we, if there was a 250 surplus, if we make a resolution at this committee level that it goes to reserve, then we wouldn't need the 250.
Okay, yeah, I understand now, sorry. That again would be with Mr. Foss, but I can't predict to 2021, but I know in 2020 that we're potentially going to run a surplus from the November numbers that Jeff gave me the other day. So, but again, we had quite a number of construction payouts and stuff to do, and we won't know till the end of January the exact number that was left over from 2020. But are you suggesting that we forecast the surplus in 2021?
No, I guess I'm finding this a little different because previously we did have a forecast for the year, so we could look at that and say, okay, we're predicting a forecast for 2020, predicting a surplus for 2020, so we could use that. So I'm wondering at the budget meetings next Monday, Jeff, do you see us having some kind of an idea if departments will have a surplus or not?
Mr. Foss, please.
Well, through you, Chair. We're only at the 12th of January here. We don't even close our year end, Councillor Hunt, until the 22nd of January in order to close our books and process all our final payables. And then there's a whole process of accruals, especially for progress payments that are related to the Public Works Department. So we certainly will not have any idea of year-end surpluses by the time we get to our budget workshop on Monday. So I do know that the director, Mr. Perkins, has been updating this committee on a monthly basis about his progress with respect to his capital projects. And I believe he's been telling you that his capital program is essentially on target. He doesn't expect to be significantly under budget on his capital target. So I don't, based on those comments, I don't see that we've got significant surpluses that are going to be created through the capital program, if that's the case. And on the operating side of the budget, it's, again, we're not at the point where we're actually closing those books as yet. We certainly could have some just looking at the fall financial statements, it does look that we could have some surplus in the housing area, a little bit in the equipment area. It's looking right now that, safety devices and hardtop maintenance are under budget. That's earlier this fall, but is that where we're going to come in at year end? I don't have any idea of what that will be, but I think generally speaking, the discussion is around creating some sort of a winter control surplus, reserve out of any surplus that's generated in 2020. And I think, this committee can make that resolution to simply set aside, if it's 250,000 or 400,000, whatever it is, you can make that resolution to create that reserve, provided that there is sufficient surplus from Public Works operations in 2020. So you can move forward with that sort of a resolution. Anything over and above that amount will automatically go into the working capital reserve. And if we don't have enough surplus, we could, your resolution could say up to, 250,000, and then we have a resolution. If it's adopted by county council, then I can record that in our 2020 year-end financial statements.
Mr. Hunt, please.
Yes, I understand, Jeff, the books aren't closed off, but in previous years, or I haven't sat in council that long, but each year we had a prior year forecast. How did we get that in the past that we don't have this year, or not able to get this year?
Perhaps through you, Chair. So as we, met virtually, I guess, throughout the fall period with each of the departments in developing the budget, we certainly talked about the creation of a forecast for 2020. However, 2020 is such an unusual year. We have millions of dollars of expenditures that are COVID related, either through salaries or through expenditure items. We have millions of dollars of additional revenues that are related to COVID-19 from a variety of sources from the federal and provincial government. We have tremendous underspending in certain areas of each one of our departments, for example, travel related, conference related, continuing education or provincial development. None of those things moved ahead. So we took the position that, in the middle of a very unusual year, we were not going to dedicate or invest the time in attempting to try and guess where we would land in 2020, hoping that we will not be repeating a year like we had in 2020, and rather we focused all of our time and attention on developing a 2021 budget based on the guidelines provided by council. So we have no forecast that is created by any of the departments, just given the unusual nature of the year and the process, I guess, that we had to go through to create the budgets that are before you today.
Thank you.
Okay.
Robinson, please.
Just perhaps, Chair, just to move this discussion along a bit, I'm going to make a motion that we create a winter control reserve of $250,000 to come from any surplus from the Public Works budget in 2020. Is that simple enough?
I like it. I would. Sorry? Evelyn, did you capture that resolution?
Yes, but I did not get a seconder. I got moved by Warden Rob.
Okay, I've got lots of seconders. Councillor TJ seconding. And Councillor Hunt, before we vote, you had your hand up for a question or comment?
Yep, my only concern with that resolution is if there is no surplus in the 2020 number, does that mean we have no reserve? Because I was in favor of building a reserve, maybe not quite that high, but if there's no surplus under that resolution, there would be no reserve. And I think that may not be the right move either.
Then perhaps it could be changed a bit that we go ahead with the 250 being put into a reserve with the intention of offsetting that cost with as much money as possible that is left over in the operations
Surplus.
budget. So
I'm certainly, I'm quite happy with that. Absolutely. I
Okay,
definitely want a
I
reserve
started-
to happen.
I sort of stumbled through that a bit, so it is that I'm certainly in favor of wanting to have the 250,000. And if we put it there originally with our motion, and then reduce the pressures accordingly as to the amount that remains in the budget reserve from operations. Mr. Morrow, you had a comment?
Yeah. Can I just have Evelyn read back the resolution for us, Chair? Thank you.
Evelyn, please.
That the Operations Committee recommend that a winter control reserve of $250,000 be set aside with the intention to offset this cost from any surplus from the Public Works budget in 2020, and that this be forwarded to the January 18, 2021 County Council Budget Workshop for approval.
Comments, Warden Robinson?
Just a question, Jeff, do we then have to identify if there isn't 250 in surplus where the rest has to come from?
Through you, Chair. So that's the difficult position that we would be in if you went forward with this resolution, is we're saying if there's 250 that will create a reserve, but if not, let's go forward with the budget to budget a reserve in 2021. The problem is we're not going to know our surplus by Monday of next week. So I think it's probably best to go ahead then and make a decision to stick with, let's use the surplus, any surplus, to create a reserve. That's a motion perhaps that stands on its own. You can certainly also look at what you want to do in 2021. Do you want to deal with those items in the budget pressure column? In addition to creating reserve, there's still the $250,000 increase to the winter control budget. Do you want to do something with that or not in the budget exercise? But the challenge is we won't know our year-end surplus by Monday of next week. So the resolutions would have to be independent, I believe.
Warden Robinson, please.
Thank you. So that clarified in my mind because I was getting a little mixed up. So honestly, what I think that what I'd like my motion just to say is that we create a winter control reserve up to a maximum of $250,000 to be funded by any surplus in the budget of 2020. If we get 250, that's great. If we get 200, whatever.
I like that. I second that.
Councillor Hunt?
Yes, thank you. Like Jeff said, I don't think on Monday we will know. So I think we have to decide here that we're creating a 250, and any numbers that we get later, which is February or whatever, maybe a further increase to this. But we got to decide on the budget next month. So we'll have to decide whether we're putting the 250 in or not. And that will be a budget pressure that will not be reduced on this budget. Am I correct?
I'm thinking that Mr. Morrow and his suggestion of having two separate resolutions is probably the way to go. And the first resolution would be that we carry on with the 250,000 budget pressure to be entered into the budget, and then add a second resolution that should there be amount of money left over from the operations budget in 2020 that funds from the reserve that is left over could be used to offset the 250,000 that was set into the budget. Warden Robinson, please.
Thank you, Chair. So yeah, my position is that we should have a reserve of up to $250,000. That will be ideal, and that would come from a surplus in 2020. If we don't have $250,000 surplus in 2020, then we'll get, I believe there's going to be some surplus. I have a sense that we're thinking there's going to be some surplus. So whatever that is, will go into the reserve. If it's not 250, it's better than zero. So to me, that's the one resolution. And the other resolution definitely is, we need to add that other 250 to this year's budget for winter control. So it definitely two separate. What I'm saying, and the first one is we're going to gamble and we're going to try to get a reserve, but we're taking it out of any surplus that happens.
Just so I'm clear, the second resolution then would be to go ahead with 250,000 in this year's budget. Okay, I think I just said that in reverse. Councillor TJ?
Could we say that we take the 250,000 out of surplus, out of the county budget, not just looking at the roads budget? Any surplus that comes, there is going to be more than $250,000 in the whole surplus for the county of Renfrew budget. I mean, we have that option too. We just take it from anywhere that there's surplus. It's,
Mr.
you're,
Foss?
you're,
Sorry. Go ahead, Councillor TJ.
it's just, it seems silly to have a surplus here and then start charging the taxpayers to make a surplus, to make a reserve when you've got the money in surplus. It's very hard to justify to taxpayers that we're doing that. So I would say that we get the $250,000 from the surplus, any surplus in the whole budget. It doesn't have to come out of Public Works. That's just a suggestion.
Mr. Foss, is that possible?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And that is absolutely possible because although this committee recommends this resolution forward, it's all of County Council that adopts it. So essentially what we are saying is that of the entire corporate County of Renfrew surplus, which by policy goes into the working capital reserve, we are going to dedicate up to 250,000, assuming that there's that kind of surplus, for the creation of a winter control reserve within the Public Works Department. Absolutely possible. Would require an amendment to that previous resolution, but absolutely possible.
Thank you. Mr. Lynch?
Thank you, Chair. With that resolution that way, we wouldn't have to do the first one that we have our excess going towards the 250 because it's already going to go into the capital reserve, which we're going to draw on again. The question to Brian is, your concern was 250,000. Did you see a different number?
No, I'm fine with, I think the number should be greater than 250, as Lee said. I just didn't want to build it over in 1 year. So I'm quite happy for that 250 to be the starting spot.
Okay,
Mr. Morrow, please, let's have a resolution that we can move and second and a vote on, please.
so Ev, any chance, Ev, you can do, put the resolution up on the screen? And share your screen with it?
One at a time.
I'll try just a second.
Just a cut and paste in Word. Or send it to me if you want, Ev, and I can do it quickly.
I'll send to you, Paul, okay?
Gordon Robinson?
Chair,
So Paul, would it be preferable that I just amend my motion to say that we create a winter control reserve in the amount of $250,000 to be funded from any surplus in our 2020 budget?
Jeff, I think that would work in my opinion.
Yep. Thank you through you, Chair. So absolutely that this committee recommend to County Council the creation of a $250,000 working or winter control reserve from the 2020 from any 2020 County of Renfrew surplus.
Okay, let's go with that.
So if that's clear, you don't have to write it up. It's short and sweet. So that's my amended motion, Chair.
Very clean and simple, seconded by Councillor TJ. All in favor of the motion? It's carried. Thank you. Mr. Morrow, please.
Chair, I just would like to take committee back to the other conversation with respect to the fire radio system. Was there a recommendation to the budget workshop for that amount to be removed from the budget when we brought it back to the budget workshop?
Gordon Robinson, please.
I I had lost track of all of that, so I'm glad Mr. Morrow brought it back up. I would make a motion that the $100,000 communication radio system be removed from the 2021 budget at this time.
The questions or seconder? Looking for a seconder.
Seconder?
Councillor Lynch? Questions? All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Mr. Foss, please.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I couldn't get my mute off. So the only other item that was in the budget pressure column, we removed the radio system. We've dealt with the creation of a winter control surplus, but there was also a request to increase the winter control budget by 250,000. We can certainly, this committee could deal with it by simply allowing it to move forward to the budget workshop for discussion, or the committee can decide to remove it from the budget, similar to what you did with the radio system. But I believe we probably should deal with that one particular item as well.
Chair, you have your mic on.
Sorry. Councillor Hunt, please.
Yes. So I'm not in favor of adding that 250, but I am willing to move it forward to council if we want to have the discussion there.
I'm having to look at the numbers that Mr. Perkins put forward over a 5-year rolling average. I don't believe for one second that the rest of this winter and spring and next fall, having it be as kind to us as this past fall and early January is out of the norm for the Ottawa Valley, period. If we reduce the winter control budget by 2.5 million, is it?
So we announced 2.1.
Thousand.
So what are you asking for the increase?
Well, to go 2.3% higher than last year, it gets us to 2.1. Sorry. Thank you, Chair, through you. So right now, we're budgeting for 2021 to be 2.165 million for the 2021 winter control. Knowing that the 5-year running average was actually 2.394 million. So in order for us to keep within the 2.3% increase, we set it at 2.165, but we know we need an extra 250 to make the 5-year average.
Thank you. So that's 250,000. I got carried away there. Warden Robinson.
Thank you, Chair. I am in agreement that we need to add the 250 onto the winter control budget. We're setting ourselves up, to actually end up not having enough money. So all we're going to end up doing then is taking that reserve that we're trying to create and draining it next year. The potential is there. So I think we should, as a committee, leave it in the budget, let it go to the workshop next week. But I would definitely argue in favor of keeping that next week as well.
Thank you. Sir, Councillor Lynch, please.
Thank you, Chair. I hate to disagree with the warden, but in one breath, we've just said if we do have a reserve or we have a surplus for 2020, and we're saying we're put that into the capital to pay for this coming 250 to put it into the reserve. Plus, now we're asking for another 250 that's not on the table. And as Brian has mentioned, over the past 5 years, we've had a couple of hard winters and we've had a couple of soft. Well, this last one was a soft. So far, I'm touching wood, it's soft. So I don't see the necessary to have the 250 there. Thank you.
Anyone want to make a motion? Councillor Bennett?
I disagree with not putting it into the budget. I feel that we need to be very fiscally responsible for what could be ahead of us. We're only at the mercy of the weather as far as what's happened this year and what could happen as we move forward. And I think we very much need to consider that we got a budget for what possibly in front of us, not guess what's coming. We know it's going to get winter again. That's coming. So I would not be in favor of not putting it in the budget. I think it needs to be there, and at the very least, leave council decide how they want to handle it going forward, and not recommend taking it out of the budget at this time, and leave the all of council make the recommendation.
Thank you. I think if we Mr. Perkins, I think you provided a number for us a year or more ago about the cost if we have one major storm in the county, what the cost of a cleanup of a major storm was? You don't recall? Sorry. It was pretty substantial anyways, amazing. Anyway, Councillor Hunt, you had your hand up?
I think we should move it forward to council, as Mr. Bennett said, Councillor Bennett, and therefore I suppose we would not need any resolution, would we?
Correct.
Well, I'm just giving committee the opportunity to put a resolution to change it. That's which I think is only fair. But if there's no one, my opinion is that it should move ahead to county, and that we should increase the budget by 250,000 during the budget deliberations. So having said that, I guess we can move on then. Yeah. Mr. Perkins, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, committee, for the discussion. Oh, sorry, Mr. Foss, did you have a question?
Thank you, Chair. So I believe your committee has dealt with the operating costs for the public work budget. You know, so in total, we've dealt with that. I just lost my screen. It's essentially an $8.6 million municipal levy to support all of these items that are contained now within the operating expenses. We do still have a very significant capital portion of the budget at about $20 million. And if you wish, Chair, I could again share my screen to at least show the capital budget. Mr. Perkins can highlight, you know, any items that he wishes to bring to your attention, but we certainly should give some consideration to your capital budget as well.
Thank you. Mr. Perkins, please.
Thank you, Chair, and through you to committee. Before Mr. Foss starts, I just wanted to highlight a couple of other issues in our budget, as you'll see from the background. So as Appendix 3, a business case for the approval of the Public Works Department to leave the part-time technician position vacant. So we actually have a part-time engineering technician in our budget every year. We would like to leave that vacant and purchase these services from an engineering vendor for contract site services. So actually attached as Appendix 5 is the two maps of the locations of care. Oh, sorry. So we use that money to purchase on-site engineering. Usually what happens is our summer students leave in September, and then we bring in a temporary individual just to look after the jobs for probably the last 2 to 3 months. And we've been doing that for a number of years. So we don't fill that part-time position. So it's about $44,000. And we actually use a contracted position. And the last couple of years, actually, we've been less than the 44,000. But again, we can't forecast what's going to occur next year. So that was one of the highlights there. Also, as you'll see in the background as well, before we go into the capital, is in Killaloe, so the Cameron Street Bridge B202, they didn't, unfortunately, due to COVID, again, the steel for the project was late coming in. And anyways, there was a bunch of issues that they never finished the project. So we had to carry that into next year's capital project. So Jeff will walk us through that again. And so that's just 2 more highlights I wanted to give you that were outstanding with our budget, but it doesn't affect an increase or decrease, but it's just a couple of issues we wanted to bring to your attention. Thank you.
Any questions on the information Mr. Perkins just passed on? Then we'll go to Mr. Foss, please.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I guess at this time, what I'll do is I'll share my screen, and perhaps Mr. Perkins then can just walk the committee through the variety of capital programs. They are significant. They are $20 million in total capital programs. Mr. Perkins just mentioned the fact that we have a Cameron Street Bridge project that did not complete in 2020. And at the time that we created the budget, that project was not in the 2021 list of capital items. So we will today have to add that item into the 2021 budget to be funded from reserves as well. So that's something that we'll have to do when we get to the capital component. So I will share my screen. And we'll move on down to the capital section. For Public Works, beginning here. So perhaps Lee, you'll want to speak to this area.
Muted, Lee.
Pardon me, Jeff, did you ask a question? Sorry. No, you're muted, Jeff, sorry.
And through you, Chair, we're at the capital section of Lee's budget, so I'll just ask Lee to guide the committee through a discussion of the various projects, bridges, culverts, roads, buildings, and then we have some equipment items as well.
Thank you, Chair, and through you,
Thank you.
the committee.
Mr. Foss, Mr. Perkins, please.
Thank you, Chair, and through you, the committee. As you see on Jeff's, I've actually done up a small PowerPoint presentation so I'm actually going to discontinue Jeff and continue mine. And I'll share this. So what we've done here is we'll go back and discuss buildings and stuff afterwards, but this is the 2021 capital program map. Unfortunately, I don't say you can see it very well, but these are the projects that we're going to do throughout the county this year. It'll take a little indulgence. There's a few slides here, but again, it shows each slide. Everyone can see this, can they? Yes. So County Road 1 in Aaron Pryor McNabb Brayside is budgeted for 890,000 and it's 1.3 kilometers. And these are the pictures of what's occurring now. So I'll go through these quickly. Again, County Road 1 again as 600,000 is budgeted here. Again, these are all within the asset management plan. So County Road 5 Stone Road is 1.1. County Road 5 in Whitewater is 672. County Road 20 in Renfrew is 60,000. This is a combined project with the town of Renfrew. They're actually doing a connecting links project here. So a lot of bang for our buck on this one. They're going to get a completely redesigned intersection for that amount of money, which is all through connecting links. County Road 21 in Beachburg is 474,000. County Road 51 in Petawawa, as you know, as you can see from these photos, of course, Petawawa Boulevard is basically at the end of life. We know we're working with our consultants to come up with a design, but this is in the asset management plan to go up and shave and pave Petawawa Boulevard. So it's 1.7 million, obviously due to multiple lanes, but we do have to do some work there and some significant curb work as well, as you can see. County Road 52 in Burnstown, and this is to do the overlay to get the hardened shoulders for the whole length from Fraser to Graham. So that's another 986,000. County Road 52 is, again, this is a joint project with Renfrew. What occurred here was this was on our plan to do last year, and Mike Aslan, once he's seen our plan, who's the Director of Public Works and Engineering in Renfrew, he came forward and said, you know, that the town of Renfrew needs quite a bit of underground work to be done here. So it was very fortunate that that Mike came forward, and now we're going to complete this section. So essentially, Burnstown to Renfrew will be a brand new road. County Road 65 is the Centennial Lake Road. So this is Deer Mountain to Chamo Road North, essentially carrying on what we did last year for another section for a 1.0 million. County Road 67, Simpsons Pit Road. So again, as you follow these budgets, because obviously I'm learning as well, they're all phased roads. So like this is the next section of Simpson Pit Road. We did a section last year, section the year before. So eventually we'll get through the whole thing and be able to turn around and come back and start again. County Road 52 is Foymont. So this is another section of the Foymont. This is a huge job, $3 million. So this will get us out way past Clear Lake and that area. So obviously, as you know, that's a very important road to the county of Renfrew in terms of the Hardeman's Mills out there. So hopefully we're improving access for those guys. And then these are the structures. Bonashir River Bridge is budgeted for $400,000. Highland Creek Bridge is budgeted for $200,000. Herds Creek Bridge, which got bumped last year, is $850,000 this year. And then this is our Killaloe project on Cameron Street, and there's $170,000 left remaining. As you can see, the actual bridge and everything's in place. So hopefully first thing in the spring, our contractors will get this looked after immediately, because obviously this was scheduled to be done this year, but it carried over. So we do apologize. County Road B240 on 4th Chute is budgeted for $400,000. This is the county structure B319 is $432,000. B005 is budgeted for $40,000. 202 on Indian River Bridge on Sandy Beach Road is budgeted for $100,000. Mount St. Patrick's is budgeted for $60,000. Pilgrim Road 64 is budgeted for $20,000. And then Petawawa River Bridge for engineering this year is budgeted for $130,000. And then there's a number of small culverts that are going to be budgeted, are going to be repaired as well. $715,000 for Constant Creek, $280,000 for Colton Creek. Dunlop Crescent Culvert is another $400,000. That's up in Head Clam Rise, one of the few culverts actually that we have far north, all the Swisha. Quaid Creek Bridge is $225,000. There's $1 million put aside for Brooms Creek, because as you know, we're still in works with our consultant engineer to decide what we're going to actually do there. The culvert needs to be replaced, and quite a bit of outreach from the community to replace or at least facilitate a dam-like structure. So we're working towards that. Pleasant Valley Steel Arch is $200,000. The C252 is $200,000. Wolf Road Twin Pipes is $200,000. 212 is $15,000. 25 is on Bourne Road is $30,000. Baggett Creek Culvert is $38,000. And there's another $12,000 for Snake River Culvert. Campbell Drive Culvert's at $65,000. $18,000 for Hands Creek Culvert. Wadsworth Lake Culvert is at $28,000. $20,000 for Jack Lakes Culvert. $20,000 for Weagle Creek Twin Culverts. And that walks you through the capital for projects for next year. And I'll stop sharing, and we'll hopefully go back to Jeff. Jeff, I need you to share yours again. Sorry. Yeah, I need Jeff's spreadsheet. Did we lose him? Oh, here we go. So in here, committee, you'll see under buildings and structures and stuff is just our standard asset management plan. These are things that we budgeted for in our asset management plan. So I'm not sure if there's any particular issues. We were, under equipment is a Rhino mowers. We're sharing a server with our finance group. Reflectometer, so that's a piece of equipment that's used to just check the reflectivity, and we do actually loan that out to the lower tiers. So it's a good thing to have in in our inventory. Under the buildings, again, it's, roofing for exterior windows, roofing, architect's fees for, that's a butterfly redesign. Sorry, I'm out of whack here. Buildings, that's all our capital works, our vehicles. One of the things we're going to purchase this year is a service van for our mechanics. You'll see it as it's an expensive item, but it's a purpose-built mechanics vehicle. Unfortunately, in our business case, we can't prove that it's going to save us money because of towing costs and stuff. But our theory is that the mechanics will be able to. Right now they use a repurposed ambulance, and it doesn't fit the needs of what they're doing. So we're looking for a new one of those, new 6-ton truck. So a plow truck, a new water truck. The pickup truck for the mechanic is another, that's for our EMS mechanic. He works for us, but he works for, he reports to us, but he works for EMS. So he actually, that's his replacement vehicle that's coming up. And again, these are all just, again, as part of our asset management. So, and then there's some roofing again for our, I'm not sure if there's any other questions related to what we're doing, but that's our overview of our capital works. Like obviously the big items are the projects, and then the equipment are big items obviously as well. But again, their asset management plans, like say the biggest thing was we were looking for proper vehicles for our mechanics. And other than that, I don't have anything else to add there, Jeff. Sorry.
Chair, your mic is not on.
Maybe on mute, Chair.
I'm sorry, I can't see the full screen. If there are any questions or comments, you just have to speak up because I can't.
Chair, I believe Councillor Hunt has his hand up.
Okay, Councillor Hunt, please.
Yeah, I wonder if we probably don't need the screen. Could we get rid of that now? If not,
Yeah.
I believe Chair, Mr. Foss has his hand up.
Okay, I can't see him.
Sorry, Chair. I certainly will stop the screen sharing. I wonder, Chair, just before I leave this particular screen, just wanted to note the totals here that you have a $20.3 million capital program, including roads, bridges, culverts, building repairs or renovations, as well as your equipment items. $1.3 million of that will be financed by an OCIF grant. And this committee may recall that we had a multi-year funding letter in 2018 from the province of Ontario indicating what our OCIF money would be for 18, 19, and 20. We did then in 2020, early in the year, receive a letter that OCIF was certainly in doubt. We were not sure if we were going to see any money. And late in the fall in 2020, we did receive a letter, 1-year funding for OCIF of $1,357,000. And so you will see on this capital list the projects that are dedicated to that provincial funding. In addition, we have our gas tax money of $2.79 million. And there are the list above of the projects that are being financed by the gas tax federal dollars coming our way. But the remainder then is being funded by our reserve program. We talked earlier in the day about the fact that we're no longer going to levy directly to finance projects, that we're taking that money and placing it into a capital works reserve for public works. So here is the money that's then coming out of reserves to finance that project. The other thing that I thought was fairly important for this committee to be aware of would be, I'm gonna have to go right to the top of this, I apologize, to the titles. And you will see that we have a traditionally we have a column here for risk indicator. And our asset management plan identified early on that each one of our assets had a risk index assigned to it, which really kind of was a combination of the probability of an asset failure multiplied by the consequences of that asset failure. And that matrix, if you will, created a risk indicator of extreme, high, medium, or low. And based on that risk indicator, we used that and applied it to our asset management plan to identify which of the projects that we should be moving forward through first, and which could be deferred to year number 2 and year number 3, and et cetera, in our capital 10-year capital plan. However, and when we get to the budget workshop next week, I will speak to this issue to all of County Council. But the province of Ontario, through Ontario Regulation 588-17, requires that as at July the 1st of 2021, all municipalities must be designating for their core infrastructure assets a asset management rating system in accordance with the regulation. And for roads, that is a pavement condition index. And for bridges and culverts, it is a bridge condition index. So our asset management plan identifies, and I'll just show you at the top of this screen, that our goal for our road network is to have a PCI rating of 70 out of 100. Think of it as 70% of a brand new roadway, which would rate 100 on the scale. But our goal is to have an entire road network rating of 70. We have 1,626 lane kilometers of roads that we're responsible for. The asset management plan also says that we should have a bridge BCI rating of 75 and a culvert rating of 90. And so because of that requirement, you will see in this column, we're now in the culvert section. And I'm going to probably go to roads. It's probably the easiest. But our very first road project, County Road 1, which is Madawaska to Elgin Street, has a PCI rating in 2020 of 46.5. And so all of our capital assets projects for the next 10 years all have a PCI rating applied to them. And when we get to the budget workshop, we'll talk about the aggregate of our network today, and then what we estimate that our ratings will be 10 years from now, once we spend 10 years worth of investment on our roads, bridge, and culvert inventory system. But that's a bit of a change that we'll talk about next week. But you'll see that we have some projects, and I had to ask Lee to verify this, but we have a couple of road segments within Foymount Road, County Road 512, that have unbelievably low ratings. Essentially, those sections of roadway are in desperate repair. So the old system, we would have called it extreme, but now we've translated that into the actual PCI rating for that section of roadway, which is obviously why we have moved those projects to be done in 2021 rather than deferring those projects any longer. So with that, thank you very much for that, Chair. I can stop sharing my screen and turn it back over to you.
Thank you. Warden Robinson, please.
Thank you, Chair. Now, Mr. Foss, with that explanation, now I'm wondering, I'm looking at a couple of things on this capital list. Certainly there's a culvert that's, culverts are supposed to be at 90, and there's a culvert there that's 16.27, so I'm surprised that it hasn't been fixed already. But then when I look down to roads, there's three roads in a row, Bruce Street and Beachburg Road, that are all above the road goal of 70, and we're doing it this year. So does that mean once we do it, they're going to be rated at that, or are they already rated at that, and why are we going so much higher?
Mr. Perkins, please.
Thank you, Chair, and through you to Madam Warden. So what this is those roads have already been rehabbed a number of years ago, and this is what we call microsurfacing. So I'm not sure if you're aware of the pavement management. So what this is, what we're doing is we're doing a microsurface of this roadway, so it gets us a lot longer life. It's the theory of, pay a little now and extend the life, or pay a lot later in a few years. So that's what happens in terms of pavement management. And what Taylor and his group are doing now is, of course, they provide this pavement quality index, and this is part of pavement management, is to go in and when they get to this level, either crack seal or a microsurface or whatever it is. So yeah, you'll actually see the pavement condition as a high number, but this is we're extending the life of the roadway by doing these microsurfaces and treatments.
Thank you. Councillor Hunt, please.
Yes, through you, Chair, to Mr. Foss. Jeff, the monies that were not expended on capital last year, where does that money go? Does it go into the TCF?
Through you, Chair, our corporate policy for any department requires that any surplus in any department falls to the working capital reserve. The working capital reserve is a designated capital reserve, and so we use that money to leverage our 10-year asset renewal program. So essentially what council has decided to do is to take any surplus. So if I save $1,000 in office supplies in the IT department, it goes into a working capital reserve dedicated for the renewal of infrastructure in the future. That's currently the policy that is in place.
Working capital for infrastructure. So I thought it was just the TCA and the Public Works capital that went. So I'm wrong there. We use working capital as well for funding capital projects.
And through you, Chair, that's correct. And maybe it's handy if I just share my screen just for a moment. And what I'll do is I'll just roll up to the reserve schedule. It's page 23 in your package. It might be a little bit small here. I'll make it a little bit bigger. You'll see that on the reserve schedule off to the far right-hand side, that there's a small letter C beside all of the reserves that form our capital reserve total. And it's our capital reserve then that we are identifying in our long-term financial plan. So what our reserves, capital reserves are today, and where we predict our capital reserves to be in the future, 10 years after the fact that we've done all this infrastructure renewal. So if we go to the bottom of this page on reserves, you'll see that we are planning at the end of 2021 to have $37 million worth of total County of Renfrew reserves, but there should be, according to this budget, $31.3 million in capital reserves at the end of 2021. If you look on this part of the page, and you don't see the column headers, but we plan to start 2021 with $38.5 million in capital reserves. So we're going to actually use $7.2 million in total of our capital reserves through the budget that's being presented to all committees this week, leaving us with 31.3 at the end of the year. If I move up a little bit and over, I'm just going to identify that working capital reserve. There it is on the left-hand side. And if we move all the way across, you'll see that there's a C beside the working capital reserve. It's one of the items that are identified as a capital reserve for the County of Renfrew and used to finance our 10-year capital renewal program. I'll just stop sharing, Chair, so you can see everybody. There we go.
Okay, so supplemental on that?
Yeah, Councillor Hunt, please.
So I make sure I understand. So if we had a capital project for $3 million this year that we did not do, the working capital would increase by that $3 million.
And through you, Chair,
Yes.
if our budget in 2020
Yeah.
identified that that capital project was financed through the levy, and we didn't do
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
we in fact have raised tax dollars that we didn't spend. So that automatically goes into the working capital reserve to be used in the future for capital renewal purposes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else on that information? Mr. Perkins, please.
Thank you, Chair. I was going to, through you to the committee, I was going to go back to Warden Robinson's question. If I may just share my screen for 1 second. I actually wanted to show the pavement management curve. So this is our PCI for the county. It goes from 0 to 100, of course. And obviously, as you can see, in the first 15 years, 75% of life. So what we do is we try to invest so much every year to keep us from sliding off that curve. So that's why you see with, a high PQI 75 or above, that we're actually spending money to maintain. I'm hopeful that made it a little clearer, but I'm certainly willing to share it with the crew. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hunt, please.
Yes. So I see the capital then, the public works are doing is $20 million, and I congratulate you for bringing that up from previous years. We were pretty low there for a number of years. But also, having said that, last year our capital was 23 million. The reason that we go from 23, and when you visited with our township, I think some projects are being put off because of a push for work not being done. What is the reason that we didn't aim for the 23 again this year? Was it because of a funding, or is it a capacity constraint?
Mr. Perkins, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and through you to Councillor Hunt. It's a multitude of reasons: capacity and the ability of the contractors in the valley to complete the work. But as we, yeah, that's all. It is a capacity issue with the amount of staff that we have, and just the ability of the local contractors to complete all the work that's necessary.
So it is not funding.
No, it's not a funding issue, because the funding is actually there, right, for
Okay.
the full
Okay.
20-year or for the full 10-year plan. So yeah, no,
Thank you.
it's definitely a capacity issue. Sorry. Thank you.
Mr. Foss, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And so the one significant item that we had last year, of course, was the beginning of the Madawaska River Bridge. And in 2020, we had $2.75 million, I think it was, for that particular project. So, as that project completed in 2020, we don't have that recurring in 2021. So that single project almost by itself identifies the drop from 23 to 20. It's just that significant bridge is complete in 2020.
Other questions on that? Yep. Item 5. Evelyn, you have to remind me, did I have a mover and seconder for item 5 to get it on the floor?
We need we haven't passed the budget yet. So we do have a mover and a seconder. Mover is Councillor Keller, seconder is Councillor Bennett.
Okay, so this is for item 5, the recommendation. Perhaps, Mr. Perkins, you would just reread the recommendation. It's been a while.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair, and through you to committee again. The recommendation here is that the Operations Committee recommends that the draft 2021 Public Works and Engineering budget be approved by this committee and forwarded to the January 18th, 2021 County Council Budget Workshop for approval.
Warden Robinson.
I'm wondering if the resolution shouldn't say as amended.
I see a thumbs up from Mr. Morrow. So as amended with the last two words on that. Is that all right with the mover and seconder? Okay, so it's okay by the mover and seconder. Councillor Lynch, you have a question?
Thank you, Chair. When we pass this motion, the budgets then going forward, the resolutions forthcoming after that are moot?
Mr. Morrow, please.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to Councillor Lynch. Those same resolutions get brought forward as well. And Jeff will explain those to the budget workshop, that those were decisions made by committee, and he will run through them. So those recommendations are to the budget workshop. Jeff, you feel free to correct me, but I believe that's the understanding.
Yeah, no, through you, Chair, thank you. So, we have a staff presented budget that this committee has amended. So the resolution is forwarding this budget to the budget workshop as amended. Those amendments are, we've removed the winter control reserve from the budget, and we are using a 2020 surplus to create that reserve. We've removed the radio system from the budget pressure line. We are leaving in the $250,000 budget pressure for a higher winter control that's going forward to the budget workshop. And also on Mr. Perkins' report is the addition of the Cameron Street Bridge. It was not listed on the detailed budget capital schedule that you had at the time of mail out. And so, Lee, do you have a dollar figure that you wish to add to this budget for the Cameron Street Bridge carryover? What's the value of the amount of that project that you're going to add to this budget?
Perkins, please.
Thank you, Chair, and through you to committee. I just want to make sure I get the exact number. My computer is thinking.
Robinson?
So while Lee's computer's thinking, so just so that I'm clear on what's going to show up at the budget workshop on Monday, Jeff, will be the amended budget, correct? So nowhere will it show that there was $100,000 for radios and that sort of thing. Is that correct?
Through you, Chair, that is correct. It's a living document, and I'm making changes as we adopt them through the various committee meetings.
I am. Yep.
Chair, if I may, just a question to Jeff, Chair, on that topic.
Yep.
Jeff, but we will highlight those resolutions that were passed, identifying the changes that were made, correct?
I'm certainly keeping track of them. So as we go into each of the various committees at the budget workshop, I can highlight the fact that the budget that we're looking at has been amended by committee to include a number of items, and I can certainly review them in each committee. But what they are going to see is the amended copy that we will mail out on Friday.
Okay, thank you. Warden, is that acceptable?
To you, Chair, to Mr. Morrow, it's acceptable, but I do see it a little bit of a slippery slope here, because if each committee gets to look at their budgets, they make some amendments, and then we're going to see the amended budget, but then we're going to talk about all of the amendments that were made by each committee. And I'm wondering, not that I want to, stop discussion, but we may end up rehashing almost every amendment as an entire group. If that's how it's going to be, so be it, but that's what I see happening.
Thank you. That also is a concern of mine, Warden. Though my outlook on how the system, unless there's something glaring, other members of county council, just as I rely on the health committee to
Mhm.
their work and behalf of the residents of Renfrew County and come back to council as a whole with that committee figures is the best scenario. Unless there's something really glaring, I don't have a problem with it, but that's just me. So there is probably a chance and a good chance that there'll be a lot, if each committee does this, there'll be a lot of discussion during the budget workshops. Mr. Perkins, you have a number, please, or numbers.
I do, thank you, Chair, and through you to Mr. Foss. Yes, 170,000 is the remaining on the Cameron Street Bridge B202. Thank you.
Anything else? All in favor of the recommendation under item 5 as amended? Carried, thank you. Okay,
Move in second to get this recommendation.
for asset management, we're on to item 6. Another recommendation, so I need a mover and seconder, please. Councillor Lynch, Councillor Keller, Mr. Perkins, please.
Thank you, Chair, and through you to committee. So the recommendation here is that the Operations Committee recommend to not approve the request to move a section of County Road 508 from Mill Street to County Road 511, Lanark Road, now scheduled to be completed in 2023 in the 10-year asset management plan back to 2022. And further, that staff continue with the asset management plan as designed. Some of the background here. So the Township of Greater Madawaska, as I noted earlier, we went down and met. A number of their projects actually got pushed from the plan. In the township have been pushed to subsequent years. Staff advised that due to budget and capacity restraints, some projects were removed from 2020, which resulted in a rippling effect. Staff has advised the township that County Road 508 project still remains in the 10-year plan. Request was made by the township to move up a section of County Road 508 and Mill Street to County Road 511. Now it is now scheduled to be completed in 2023, and that's part of our 10-year plan. And again, Greater Madawaska would like to move it into 2022. So with that, I'll entertain some questions.
Questions or comments? Hunt?
Thank you. We had submitted, Greater Madawaska had submitted a letter asking that perhaps the project could be moved up to 2021. And we were told at that point that we didn't really like to play with the 10-year capital plan, that it must stay in 2022. So then I was surprised when it got moved from 2023 or 2022 to 2023, and the other project moved from 2022 to 2024. Both these projects, the first one has a PCI of 35, the second one has a PCI of 43, so it falls greatly under the 70 that is stipulated as the where we should be hitting. The other thing is in front of our home support medical center and so on, we've had extreme flooding that we have to sandbag in the spring because the ditching along that stretch of 508 bypass is insignificant. There has been some entrances allowed without culverts, and it is causing extreme concerns and costs for us on an annual basis. Well, not annual. Every time we have significant flooding, we're sandbagging to keep the water out of our buildings. So, and Mr. Perkins mentioned a little while ago when I asked him, would the flooding be looked at in 2021? He mentioned that it would be looked at, but because we're doing that road at a future date, I got the feeling that it probably wouldn't be done to when the road is being rehabilitated, which is 2023 and 2024. So it takes me back to the concern that we have. And I think these are the wrong roads. The PCI is very low. They're the wrong roads to be deferred. And And another one of my concerns are they're being deferred without really an explanation coming, you know, that we have an opportunity to debate the point. So because they're 2022 and 2023, I don't know that we have to belabor it here, but in order to get our budget going forward. But I would really like to visit this again, because I cannot go and explain this to the ratepayers of Greater Madawaska, you know, who I've told them that would be done in 2022. And I do not understand. I appreciate Taylor and Brett and Lee coming down, but I'm still without answers that I can take out to the public. So I'm just wondering if we should defer this item and bring it back to a post-budget meeting. And perhaps I would give Lee an opportunity to, you know, present us with some more information, or perhaps take a second look at these two roads and perhaps move them back to where they were scheduled in the budget, or in the asset management plan.
Gordon Robinson?
Thank you, Chair. So I would agree with Councillor Hunt, unless Mr. Perkins can explain to us now why the change was made from 2022 to 2023, because I think we need to understand that.
Mr. Perkins, please.
Thank you, Madam Warden, and through you, Chair, to committee and to Madam Warden. So this is the 10-year capital management plan, as we all know. So what this protects is, you know, doing certain areas of the county. This is make sure that everybody is treated equally. Our PCI is actually, our target is 70, is what we're trying to achieve. What occurred here was last year, for example, the town of Petawawa, we had to do a major work on their riverbank. So that money that was spent there in January and February was actually swallowed into our 2020 capital works program. So what ends up happening is when stuff like that comes up, it pushes other jobs out. Granted that the PCI is low for that area, but as you look through our plan, there's actually much lower places as well. And even through the 10-year capital plan, there's low roads that are much lower than that. But we do try to follow this in an organized fashion. And I do wear the fact that we went down and met with the mayor and his group previously. We had an older version of the capital asset management plan that we didn't have juggled. So, and I used the word juggle very loosely, but we do, you know, we try to keep within X number of dollars for every single year. We try to work around the county, and we do work within our BCI. But last year was a particular case where at the beginning of the season, we started out in Petawawa with that expenditure, and then that just cascades down through the whole 10-year plan. And so with that, I'll let the CAO answer as well.
Thank you. Councillor Hunt, please.
Thank you for that explanation. But earlier, Lee, you said to me that funding was not one of the restrictions. So I don't think we could use that explanation that the money expended in Petawawa caused everything to flow, because we have determined that funding is not a concern. The money is there.
Mr. Perkins, please.
Sorry, I'll clarify. So when you guys approve this budget today, for example, we'll have $18 million or whatever it is for next year for going into the 2021 season. So if an emergency repair comes up between now and the end of budget cycle, then that money has to come from that capital asset management plan. So let's take the worst case scenario. Madawaska River Bridge washes out, $10 million project. So we now have to come back to council and say, you know, out of our $19 million capital project list for asset management, we need $10 million unless we're going to fund it from somewhere else, from reserves or wherever it comes from. But that's the worst case scenario. So if that bridge washed out, that $10 million comes out of that capital works project, all the projects that you see on this list will be pushed to next year. And that's how the system works.
Gordon Robinson, please.
And again, and Councillor Hunt will know, I'm no financial expert, but I'm not sure that when something extraordinary happens, why we wouldn't in fact take it out of reserves as opposed to impacting the capital works we had planned for any given year. I need to understand that thinking, please.
Mr. Morrow, please.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to committee. I believe the suggestion was this resolution be deferred. And one of the things I would ask for direction on then from committee is should committee vote to defer the recommendation is that Mr. Foss and Mr. Perkins take a look at one, what the cost of the project would be, two, what the impact on the asset management plan would be, and what the impact would be on the reserves over the 10-year period. So, and I think that understanding that impact on the reserves over the next 10 years and what that might bring us down to, that may help us better understand. So I'm agreeing with Councillor Hunt in terms of taking a look at it and deferring it to beyond the budget approval, and then coming back to committee with a better understanding.
Thank you. I'm quite agreeable to defer it, and the items that you mentioned, Mr. Morrow, I think that information is very important for us to have and would answer all of our questions about how we should move forward with this. Warden Robinson?
Thank you, Chair. I'll just second Councillor Hunt's motion to defer.
Okay, we had a mover and seconder for the recommendation, Mr. Morrow. And this is a new recommendation, so I need a mover and seconder.
So you will have to vote. Sorry, Chair. My apologies.
Go ahead.
You will have to vote down the first. Now that you have a second, that resolution is on the floor. You'll have to have a vote, and then we'll see where it goes.
Yeah. Okay, so as far as item 6 resolution goes, all those not in favor? Not in favor. Not in favor. Not in favor. I just want to see if people were paying attention. Thank you. That resolution is defeated. Now we have a new resolution on the floor. And it was, and Warden Robinson, you seconded it, but I need a mover. Is that Councillor Hunt? Yeah, okay, so moved by Councillor Hunt, seconded by Warden Robinson, that item 6 be deferred back to Mr. Perkins to bring back more information and with Mr. Foss's assistant at a later date. Mr. Morrow, please.
Chair, go ahead. If you don't mind, go ahead and call for the vote, and then I just want to explain how I screwed this up.
Okay. All those in favor? Carried.
And that's recorded, Paul.
And so, Chair, if I may,
Yes.
for the purposes of the minutes, if we could just show that that the committee voted to defer the resolution, we should not have voted against it. The motion to defer is a subsidiary motion, so it takes precedent over the original motion. The original motion should have just got set aside, and we should have not have voted on it. I apologize for that, because once the motion is voted down, there's nothing to defer. So, so my apologies. It took me a second. I've only had one cup of coffee today, so if we could just have the minutes reflect that the motion was deferred on the second vote, I would appreciate committee's indulgence in that.
Thank you. Is that noted by yourself, Evelyn?
Yes, I have got that. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move forward. Oh, item 6.
Mr. Chair.
Is there still questions on the one that we just finished?
Councillor Lynch, yeah, has his hand up.
Councillor Lynch and then Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Chair. To the CEO, for protocol and jurisdictional and stuff, could we not have the motion that we passed, that didn't pass it, to bring it back as a reconsideration, and then it's all done that way, or just let it slide? Thank you.
Yes, Chair, through you to Councillor Lynch, you could do that, or you could let it slide.
Slide it is.
Thank you. Councillor Bennett, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just has a thought as we're moving forward here. I don't understand why when situations like this arise and there's emergency use of the money for larger projects, that what that money was scheduled for in that given year that it was taken away should be number one on the priority list for the following year. It shouldn't be shoved out 2 or 3 years because we missed the boat. It should be automatically come forward that it's in the next fiscal year that the work continues, because I agree with Brian. It's very difficult to explain to the ratepayers what happened to their funds and how come they got shoved off the plate for 2 years instead of not getting it back on the plate in the next year. So I think that needs to be looked after through the committee to have a guidance moving forward, and then we don't have these kind of discussions.
Thank you. I believe that is exactly what Mr. Foss is proposing being done in the 2021 budget. Is exactly what Councillor Hunt and yourself, Councillor Bennett, have just stated. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff. Is that not the intention now, that if something is not completed in 1 year, the money will be set aside to be completed in the following year?
Well, thank you, Chair. And I think you're referring to the fact that we are no longer going to finance these projects directly from the levy. Rather, we're going to direct that money on an annual basis into a public works reserve, capital reserve. If the projects go ahead as per the budget, then we have the reserve to do it in the current year. But if they don't go ahead, the money stays in that reserve, ready to go in a subsequent year. So that's exactly what's going to happen.
Much better said than I figured it out. Does that clarify, Councillor Bennett? Thank you. Any other questions before we move on? Thank you. We're at item number 7, Town of Arnprior realign signalized intersection. Need a mover and seconder for the recommendation, please. Councillor Lynch. No seconder. Warden Robinson. Mr. Perkins, please.
Thank you, Chair, and through you to committee. So the recommendation here is that the Operations Committee not approve the request for assistance in financing of construction for the intersection of Edie Street and County Road 2, which is Daniel Street in the town of Arnprior. The background here is committee will see as attached as Appendix 5 is the request for assistance from the town of Arnprior in the financing of construction, the intersection of Edie Street and County Road 2, Daniel Street. An intersection review attached as Appendix 6 was completed by Stantec Consulting Limited, and the town has approved option 1, which is realign the signalized intersection, and is requesting a 23% of the project cost to a maximum limit of $292,860 from the county of Renfrew. The county has offered a solution to the situation, which is a right in and right out at the intersection. We believe this is developer driven and such should be funded from other sources.
You're muted, Chair.
Any questions or comments? Mr. Lynch.
Thank you, Chair. I'm hoping that everybody got the memorandum that I had sent earlier. At council, I advised our residents that I would read this. So with your indulgence, Chair, I'd like to really zoom through it.
Thank you.
So on behalf of the town of Arnprior Council and residents of Arnprior, I request the County of Renfrew consider providing financial support to the realignment of the intersection located at County Road 2, Daniel Street and Edie Street in the amount of $295,000. This project estimates construction time frame for 2 to 4 years with a completion date of 2024, providing COVID is still with us. It is reasonable for the ratepayers of the county to expect support from the upper tier for such projects when they directly involve Renfrew County infrastructure, that being County Road 2. The county benefits directly from the growth of the municipalities in the county financially through the assessments each community contributes. It is unreasonable for the upper tier to take a position that certain projects are a direct result of growth, so that growth should pay for it. Just a sidebar, Arnpar is sort of landlocked. We don't have a lot of land left. When we're finished building, you're not going to get any more money for us or from us. When in fact, the same growth will add to the financial coffers of the county and does so in forever. Short. The numbers in this memorandum are estimates on the growth since 2019 and projected through 2026. It should be noted that the current subdivisions, once completed, are, in the words of developers, sellouts. We have 3 developing housing developments and 1 commercial business that are being planned, which are either on or exit onto County Road 2. The residentials are Virtus Farm and Van Dusen comes onto it. The classic driving range, again, another residential, goes directly onto White Lake, which is Baskin. AJ Charbonneau is on to Baskin Drive. The commercial business will be on Bevshaw, which is SSI. As well, land is being purchased for the construction of the French school on Baskin Drive. When that's going to happen is anybody's guess. It should be noted that none of these projects are factored into this calculation, but will have a direct financial benefit to the county and have an immediate impact on traffic and safety and demands on County Road 2, Daniel Street. Development in the direct area of this intersection has added some 400 homes. 400. Usually 400, 2 cars to a home, so that's 800 cars. With the further 200 homes being built in the Fairground subdivision, along with the houses from the aforementioned housing developments leading to County Road 2, all of that one intersection. It is important to understand that 2 blocks from this particular intersection is the major commercial area. All know, if you know, it's Arnpire Mall, Canadian Tire, McDonald's, Home Hardware, No Frills, all that good stuff. In my opinion, and it's my opinion, 90% of the vehicles entering Arnpire come off Highway 17 onto Daniel Street, right onto that intersection. Of note, this intersection is a concern for pedestrian safety. We've had a number of complaints about people. It's a 40-kilometer speed limit. I don't know why these guys are speeding anyways, but the pedestrians are taking their life in their hands when they're trying to cross this thing because of the staggered. The town has written both written and verbal complaints, which we've mentioned. There have been serious consultations involving county, town developers about how to make this intersection a viable intersection capable of handling the amount of traffic. To this end, as is mentioned, we hired an engineering firm which concluded the intersection had to be realigned. All parties, and I'd say that all parties agreed with the realignment with the best solution. The county said right and right. If you've ever been on Daniel Street and you're trying to come out of Galvin Street and turn right, if you want to come back to your house, that means you're going to go all the way down to Elgin Street, make a left turn on Elgin Street, make a left turn on John Street, make a left turn on Edie, come back to the lights, turn left, and then turn right to go back into your house. That's ludicrous to me. Anyways, to carry on, the finances, the conservative, and this is where the interesting part comes in, the conservative calculation of tax revenue to the Renfrew County through assessment from the town, our current 2020 input to the county is $4,100,000. We estimate when all our construction and housing are done over the next 5, we'll have increased it by $800,000 to $1 million per year. To conclude, we, the town of Arnpar, believe it is reasonable for the county to contribute an amount not to exceed $295,000 of the estimated $1,500 expense. This is a project that requires the cooperation and partnership of all 3 parties, the town, the county, and the developer. We look forward to securing this partnership and working through the project for the improved daily life and safety, not only of our residents living in the town and county, but to the travelers who are passing through our magnificent county. Thank you, and it's my hope this committee will support our request. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Questions, comments? Warden Robinson?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Lynch, for that presentation. I'm wondering if you are at liberty to tell us so there's about 1.4 and change remaining out of that $1.5 million project. Are you at liberty to tell us how much the town is contributing and how much the developer is contributing?
It's in the package from Lee. If you're faster than I am to find it, Lee, it's an appendix with the monies.
Oh, I do apologize because I did not see that.
Bear with me, Chair, and I'll try to find it. Of course, my computer is on mice.
Page 39 there.
Oh, thanks, Sheldon. All I gotta do is find page 39 now. The advantage of having two Mickey Mouse computers.
Yeah.
Well, that didn't work. There it is. So the Armpire, we're paying 635,720 and 292 from our capital reserves. The county Renfrew was 292 and the developer was 50. But in fact, the developer is paying more than that. I want to say he's paying more than that. That was our goal at that point when we wrote this thing from the CAO. But my understanding, he's paying a bit more. What I don't know, sorry, Chair.
Councillor TJ?
So you're saying that the developer's only paying 50,000 towards the project? And the county is suggesting that the intersection is developer driven. So I just don't understand why they're only paying 50 and they're asking taxpayers to pay the balance. Just, Dan, just for my own information.
Councillor Lynch?
It's I guess when you say developer driven, they have to have a road, which is Galvin Street, onto our road. We, the town, should be providing transportation road to our residents. Now, they have done everything on Galvin Street to bring it to the county. Again, I don't know the exact amount. It says 50,000, but I'm sure it's more than that. But I don't want to. I could call our treasurer to confirm exact dollars. Just while we're waiting, I could come back to that.
Can I do a follow-up then, Tom? So the county is recommending that we not support the request. And could some of that be because it would be precedent setting, Lee? I don't know.
That might be a question for Mr. Morrow.
Oh, okay, Paul?
Yeah, thank you for that, Councillor TJ, and through you to the committee. Yeah, absolutely. It would be precedent setting. I know we have other issues arising in Petawawa of a similar nature that will cost as well. The challenge and the principle with respect to growth pays for growth, that actually is driven from the province, and that is the Municipal Finance Officers Association also does that. Typically, the growth-related charges are addressed, and new growth are through the developer, and then those things that have a overall community benefit come from development charges. So as you're aware, the county doesn't have development charges. So we do not have a source of revenue to fund it. Again, as I've indicated before, ultimately though, this is a decision of council. And again, I agree with your, with respect to your comment, it is precedent setting.
Thank you. Warden Robinson, please.
Thank you, Chair. So, I recognize that we have a significant part to play in this, and I'd say I'm probably not against some financial contribution, but not to this extent. I would really like to know how much the developer is paying for this. It seems I'm actually very surprised that, basically $900,000 of it is being paid for by the town. That's that's significant and good for you that you're willing to do that. I just think the 300,000 from the county of Renfrew might be a bit exorbitant.
Councillor Hunt?
Yes, so there's a set of lights here, and I believe it's about 195 traffic signals, $195,000 that will be going on to the county road. Would it be, well, before I say this, I'm very nervous about precedent setting as well, but I'm wondering those traffic lights, if there's some way of justifying those as being a county expense.
Councillor TJ?
Yeah, if I recall, we had asked for consideration of a light, and the county told us that it is a municipal responsibility. So again, if you're setting precedents here, don't forget the rest of us will come a-calling. Anyways, thank you.
Yeah, I do think it is precedent setting, and it's very nice that the developer worked on Gavin Street. And I guess by Councillor Lynch's comment, I'm thinking like the Gavin Street that runs from the development to Daniel Street, but that's only, is it 20 meters? Maybe, that would be the length of Gavin Street that they would be working on. I've read and reread the proposals and information from the town of Arnprior. Putting on my county of Renfrew hat, I can't. Well, first of all, in my opinion, the safest and best idea to put there is a roundabout, because Daniel Street is getting choked with traffic lights, and there is a certain amount of traffic flow that in my mind should be maintained, of which a roundabout would fix. But anyway, that's just my opinion. But I understand Arnprior is getting built out and is going to be putting more money towards the county. And they're a little over 4 million now. I can tell you that the township of McNabb Braeside is over 3 million. So 200 houses also brings a lot of tax dollars to the town. So I'm having to struggle with this one. Councillor Lynch, did you get some information for us?
No, they're all scrambling to find paper. I know they've gone back to the developer to ask for more money because we thought the 4% was less, but they haven't got an answer back. Could I suggest, could we defer this? Like, this isn't going to happen overnight, and that we could possibly come back and do a proper presentation from the town. And then
I think that would be a very good idea. Is there any other comments on it, Councillor TJ?
I guess the only thing I worry about is if we decide to give the 300,000, we need to budget that. So we don't have a lot of time, right, to determine whether or not we'd be supporting it, just for my own. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, just a comment on that.
Yes, please, Mr. Morrow.
I believe in the report that Councillor Lynch read, the project estimated construction frame is 2 to 4 years. So it does not have to be done in this budget year.
Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification.
Councillor Hunt and then Councillor Lynch. I'm sorry. Councillor Bennett, and then Councillor Lynch. You've moved around on my screen.
Thank you, Chair. I think what we're forgetting here a little bit is the life of the tax dollars that are going to come in with the flow of the traffic, and that's got to be taken into account. there has to be some onus on the county as we move forward with all the new construction that we're predicting is going to happen along the 17 corridor. So there's got to be a life to the project, and there's got to be some kind of formula come up that, because I'm sitting here right now and I don't have a computer in front of me and punching numbers, but I'm going to say about the $300,000 they're looking for is over a 20-year period, because that's how long it's going to be there for. So if we take 20 years of tax dollars, really, we're only looking at $20,000 a year or $25,000 a year maximum that's going to cost the county coffers. So we need to make sure that as we move forward and as we move forward with the development in certain areas, that we're taking into account of what's coming back into the county coffers. So there's got to be a little bit of investment. We just can't wipe it off the map, in my opinion.
Councillor Lynch and then Councillor TJ.
Thank you, Chair. That was one of my comments, and it obviously Councillor Bennett and myself have the same hairdo, so that's why we got confused. Thank you.
Councillor TJ.
Yeah, I'm not arguing. I think though that as county councillors, I don't take into account that let's give Aaron Pryor more because they give more to the county. We have to be fair across the board. I'm saying that if it's precedent setting, then if I come, county council better consider my proposal. And even though I don't contribute as much as Aaron Pryor, I think that I should be eligible on the same grounds. Who decides how much we're giving in will be the magic point that we start giving back. So, you know, if you're going to do it for them, then I would expect that if KH&R came up, and probably never, but my point is there could be others coming up, then we can't say, oh, we're not going to give anything to Head Clara Mariah because they don't contribute as much as Aaron Pryor. So that's all I'm saying. It's not the money part of it. It's over 20 years, of course. It's just precedent setting. And if everybody thinks everybody should be eligible for the same consideration, I'm good with it. Thank you.
I'm sitting here actually because we have a lot of property along the 417 corridor. And as this discussion's been going on, I've been going through my mind of different places where McNabb Braeside will certainly be on the bandwagon if the project goes through for one. I agree with Councillor TJ. If it goes through for one, it goes through for all. So, any other comments, Councillor Lynch?
Thank you, Chair. I wasn't here multi-years ago when this decision was made, or provincial, to say that you can't use development as an excuse to request for money. But I'm going on an idea where you go by case. If your Mayor TJ's having a subdivision come in and there's 2 houses and they want $700,000 to make the intersection, not a hope. But if they got 500 houses, then I got a real issue. That's a whole pile of money that'll pay for that thing over the 20 years. Just throwing that out there. Thank you, Chair.
So we did have a suggestion that this be deferred, Mr. Morrow. You got it right this time?
Yes, Chair, absolutely. Just, Chair, if I may, though, I just want to clarify. It is not a policy of the County of Renfrew. In fact, there is no policy, but it is a principle of growth that the province and others advocate, that is, growth should pay for growth. So it's not something that is written in policy for us, but it is a principle of growth. And I just wanted to clarify that because in your last comment, you suggest it was a rule, and it's not a policy of the County of Renfrew. This is a one-off, and it is a unique request.
Can I make that comment?
No, Councillor Lynch.
Oh, okay.
But you're correct, Chair. There is a motion on the floor.
Okay, we'll have Councillor Hunt, and then we'll move on to the motion.
Okay, I guess when we talk about growth, paying for growth, it's through development fees. And if there's 600 homes at approximately $4,000 development fee, that would be $2.4 million that would be coming into the coffers of the Arm Prior. Now, I'm kind of swaying on this one, but I am afraid of precedent, but I would just wanted to make that point and move towards it being deferred to a later date.
Thank you. So, Councillor Lynch, were you the mover of deferring?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
I can't remember, Evelyn. Oh, okay, Councillor Hunt, you're the seconder. Any further questions? Seeing none, all in favor? It's carried. Thank you. On to item 8, share the road safely. There is another recommendation. I need a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Keller, Councillor Bennett. Mr. Perkins, please.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to committee. The recommendation here is that staff be directed to write a letter in support of the application to the federal government's Enhanced Road Safety Transfer Payment Program by the Ottawa Valley Cycle and Active Transportation Alliance. The background here is the Ottawa Valley Cycling and Active Transportation Alliance, OVCATA, has applied to the federal government's Enhanced Road Safety Transfer Payment Program for funding to assist with the road safety education campaign to be held in 2021. That will be aimed at drivers and cyclists in rural and small towns within Renfrew County. The OVCATA has requested that the Public Works and Engineering endorse this endeavor and become a partner in this campaign. There is no obligation for the County of Renfrew to provide financial in-kind support.
Thank you. Finally, an easy one. I don't, is there any comment or all in favor of the recommendation? It's carried. Thank you. Item 9, Township of Laurentian Valley, no parking request. I need for a recommendation. I need a mover and seconder. Councillor Bennett. Councillor Hunt. Mr. Perkins.
Thank you, Chair, and through you to committee. The recommendation here is that the Operations Committee recommend to County Council that no parking signage be installed on a section of County Road 36, TV Tower Road in the Township of Laurentian Valley for approximately 500 meters north and south of the Algonquin Trail on the east side of the road. The background here is resolution number CC 2005032 from the Township of Laurentian Valley, which states, the Council Committee recommends that Township Council amend bylaw 2004-05-2012, a bylaw to regulate parking on the obstruction of highways and streets within the township. Further, that Council and Committee recommends that Township Council pass a resolution to be forwarded to the County of Renfrew requesting that a parking restriction be implemented on TV Tower Road adjacent to Algonquin Trail. This was received by staff. So Appendix 7 includes the report to the Township of Laurentian Valley's Public Works, Property and Protection Committee, along with the map depicting the parking restriction location. The Township has advised that they have received several complaints regarding vehicles parked on both sides of the roadway and are often contacted with regards to excessive speed in the area as well.
You're mute, Chair.
Goodness. Any comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Sorry. You had to spoil it, Mr. Perkins. Yes. Mr. Perkins, that's a comment.
Yeah, so sorry, my apologies here. If you read through the literature from the Township of Laurentian Valley, they were actually hoping for no parking on both sides for 500 meters. So we thought a compromise here was to do it on one side of the road, because as you know, development and property have spent quite a bit of money to have people access the Algonquin Trail. Also, as committee will recall from County Road 508, the county roads are arterial roads. They're made to move material and goods throughout the county, and the shoulders of the road are such that there's adequate room there for parking. So we're hoping that parking on one side should alleviate the problem.
Thank you. Warden Robinson, please.
Thank you. I certainly understand the thinking behind that, Mr. Perkins, about on one side. That section of the Algonquin Trail has been open for a number of years. It's stone dusted, so it's used year round, motorized and non-motorized. So it is a very tricky area. So if the consensus is that it's going to be on one side, that's fine. But if that doesn't alleviate the problem, then we'll bring it back for further discussion.
Okay. Councillor TJ.
I apologize. This is probably a stupid question, but if we want them to use the trail and they have no place to park, is there any, like, I don't understand that. Either we're talking, we want people to do that or we don't. So if we want development, want economic development, and we want those people to be using our trails, that's what we're paying money to fix them. Why would we discourage? Or is there someplace else they could park? I don't like saying we want to do this and then hinder it in some other way. And just maybe it's a stupid question. Maybe there is parking someplace else. But if you're telling me you want me to use your trails, you better make sure I'm able to park somewhere because I got to get there. Anyways, just a point. Thank you.
Gordon Robinson, please.
So the issue was that people were parking on both sides of the street. It's not that wide. And so when people, and there's not a lot of shoulders, right? So they're encroaching on the actual roadway itself. There were times when, you know, if there'd been an emergency, would have been pretty tight. You certainly wouldn't have been able to meet an oncoming vehicle. It would be one or the other. So again, one side of the road is good. Let's see what happens.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lynch.
Thank you, Chair. We have the same thing on Division Street. We have no parking. And the issue to Councillor TJ, when the snowmobiles or whoever's coming up, there is a stop sign. They look both sides and then they cross. With a vehicle parked in front of that stop sign, the people coming out will not be seen until they're in the intersection, and then we're going to have a fatality or whatever. I endorse no parking on either side so that the people on the trail can actually see. Where you want to go parking, there's we have ample parking spots a couple blocks away on our intersection. I don't know about the Tower Road, if there's parking there or not, or why are they parking there in the first place? Just to get on the trail?
Okay, my understanding is that there's a, please, Warden Robinson, correct me. There's a fair length of parking space on the Tower Road. And this is just to eliminate a portion of it on one side to help visibility. I guess it would be one side. I personally, I'd like to see it on both sides. If there's parking with close, as Councillor TJ says, if there's parking within a reasonable distance, because if you're going to the trail to walk or ride a snowmobile, or if you're going to walk, well, you might have to walk another 50 meters or 100 meters or whatever it is to get to the trail. But I'm surprised that we wouldn't have it on both sides. But if one side is suitable, that's up to committee. Because in my municipality, have the same problem as Councillor Lynch, especially on Campbell Drive. There's hardly any place to park, and when we sort of park partway on the trail, and then and it's on such an angle that trying to get back out onto Campbell Drive in an 80-kilometer zone, which is the minimum speed they drive there, it's dangerous. And we've already had one accident, although the fault of the person on the trail, at a trail and roadway intersection. So I'm surprised that just not having both sides for, if I understand, is it 50 meters on each side of the trail?
500.
Oh, 500 meters. Oh, okay. Warden Robinson?
So yes, that was the request that it be on both sides. So, I mean, you know, Mr. Perkins is saying one side. You know, I certainly think that perhaps we can, with listening to, you know, the concerns that obviously Councillor Lynch has identified and was identified at Lawrence Valley Council, perhaps we just need to shorten the length and still do it on both sides, but not have it 500 meters. But it is a definite issue, and that is a busy road. It can be a very busy road, and it's 80 kilometers an hour, which means that most people are going 105. So it can cause some difficulty. So if we can look at, as opposed to 500 meters, have it both sides, but a reduced length, that might be a good compromise.
I would be in favor of an amendment to reduce, if it's on both sides, I would be in favor of an amendment to reduce the 500 meters down to, I don't know what would be a reasonable distance. Like I'm thinking 100 meters is more than the length on each side, that would be. So I guess 200 meters on both sides seems reasonable to me, but I'm open for suggestions. Warden Robinson.
I'm just actually checking the letter from Renfrew Valley, and the request was for 200 meters, not 500.
Okay. Advised 500 meters. Okay. And sorry? Okay.
Mr. Perkins.
That's what the county wanted. Okay. I disagree with the county. I just sorry, I'm a sidebar with Mr. Perkins there that the Renfrew Valley wanted 200 on each side, which I think is the right way to go, or 100 on each side. 200 total. I'm getting confused again. Is that 200 meters on each side, Warden, or is it 200 meters, 100 on each side? Like
Chair, the way I read the letter, it was 200 on each side. Again, this was a conversation that happened in May, so you're testing my memory to say exactly what all the conversation was back then.
Okay, that's, I think lots of confusion going on between myself and my chair, or my director here. Mr. Perkins, please.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you, Chair, through you, the committee. So Laurentian Valley asked for 200 meters each side of the Algonquin Trail. So as a compromise, we decided if we went with one side, because there's an actual business on one side of it, there's a storage facility there. So there's traffic actually entering and exiting. Back to county roads again. The shoulders of the road are actually wide enough for parking, similar to 508. So theoretically, people are supposed to be off the road when they're parked there. And again, this was one of the issues with when we discussed this amongst ourselves here in the office, accessing the trail. So what you're seeing there is a number of people are accessing the trail to walk and stuff. So we also believe this may be not to blame COVID, but this is maybe a COVID thing where people are actually out walking the trail. So we figured a good compromise was to do one side of the road, no parking.
Thank you, Chair. And just as a note of interest, that one of the people concerned about the parking was the person who actually owns the self-storage area. So
sorry, Chair, through you, and that was the intent, was to have no parking on that side to protect that entrance in and out. So that's why we thought the one side was a compromise. But again, the distance to get to that intersection is 500 meters. So if we went 100 meters up the road with no parking, then potentially people could park near the entrance to the business. So that's the rationale for the half a meter or 500 meters on each side on one side of the road.
Chair, if I may, I believe you have an amendment, a motion to amend the resolution on the floor.
You're muted, Chair.
Mute again.
You're muted.
Yeah. So if I understand, Mr. Rory, you're wanting us to move forward. So,
Sorry, Chair, my apologies. I thought I was more subtle.
Evelyn, do you have the amended resolution? We would need to vote on that first, correct?
Correct, and I have it here. That
Okay,
the The Operations Committee amend the recommendation to County Council that no parking signage be installed on a section of County Road 36, TV Tower Road in the Township of Laurentian Valley for approximately 100 meters north and south of the Algonquin Trail on both sides of the road for a total of 200 meters in.
Warden Robinson, is that, that's a lot less than 500 on each side. 500 meters, if I understand metric, that's half a mile, isn't it? Almost half a mile.
I'm not sure where
Half a
the
kilometer?
500 meters came from because that was not the request in the letter either. And the request in the letter was 200 meters.
It came from the county. Came from Mr. Perkins. So anyways, the amended resolution is suitable to Laurentian Valley because I find it suitable.
I would think so. It's certainly better than we have now. And again, just making sure that we're talking north and south of the trail because it's TV Tower Road, the trail goes through it.
Okay, any other questions? All in favor of the amended resolution?
We don't have a mover and a seconder for it though.
For the amended one? I thought we did.
Just the warden.
Oh, okay. I'll second it. Okay. All in favor of the amended resolution? Carried, thank you. Getting there.
And Chair, you need a, now
Oh,
you
yes,
a vote on the resolution as amended.
and we already had a mover and seconder for that, correct? So all in favor? That's, we're getting rid of that one. Thank you. Okay. We're on to bylaws, off-road vehicles and County of Renfrew roads. Mover and seconder for the recommendation, please. Councillor Keller. Councillor Bennett. Mr. Perkins, please.
Thank you, Chair, and through you to committee, off-road vehicles on County of Renfrew roads. So the recommendation here is that the Operations Committee recommend that a bylaw to regulate the operation of off-road vehicles on County of Renfrew roads be passed, and further that the Operations Committee recommend that bylaw number 9917 be repealed. So the background here is the County of Renfrew has received notice from the Ministry of Transportation that changes have been made to Ontario regulations which allow for the operation of dirt bikes and wheeled extreme terrain vehicles along Ontario roadways. These off-road vehicles have previously been prohibited from operating on roadways within Ontario. So in order to effect the change and allow the additional types of off-road vehicles, ORVs, to operate along county roads, it is necessary to update the county's off-road vehicle bylaw. A draft copy of the bylaw, together with the tabled letter, was circulated to all municipalities within the county to request feedback. The County of Renfrew Public Works and Engineering Department, we did receive responses from the town of Abbotston Bromley, the town of Renfrew, and the township of Head Clare Mariah, and the township of Bonnechere Valley. None of the respondents indicated that any changes were being requested at that time. Also attached as Appendix 8 is information and provincial requirements that have been received from the Ministry of Transportation with regards to the expanded on-road opportunities for off-road vehicles in certain areas of Ontario. And this came into effect on January 1st, 2021. Thank you.
Questions or comments? Warden Robinson?
Thank you, Chair. And I don't know, maybe it's just because my brain's not working quite right now, but I don't understand exactly what are we doing here? Are we passing a bylaw that's going to allow dirt bikes and what the other thing is called on the roads, ORVs on the roads or not? Because the responses that you did receive states that none of the responses indicated that any changes are being requested at this time. I'm not clear.
Mr. Perkins, please. Oh, Mr. Morrow, please.
Thank you, Chair. This essentially brings the bylaw in compliance with the provincial regulations. With respect to the comment around no changes, the no changes are with any of those roads that have been recommended for off-road vehicle use by our local municipalities. However, the bylaw is ultra vires because it is not consistent with provincial regulations. That is the minor change.
Warden Robinson?
Thank you. So I'm not familiar with dirt bike. I know what a dirt bike is, but I haven't seen dirt bikes with like kids riding them. So when they're going to be on our roads, do they require a driver's license, or can a 12-year-old be just cruising down a road on a dirt bike?
Mr. Morrow, please.
I understand, Chair, that they will be still required to follow all the provisions of the Highway Traffic Act. And so again, having a license, being of an age to have a license, yes.
Dirt bike in particular, you'd have to have a motorcycle license. They're normally for off-road racing because they have really knobby tires. I don't know how safe they will be on pavement, especially if there's a bit of wetness or water on it. Councillor Lynch.
Thank you, Chair. These off-road bikes, they're about $400 a Canadian Tire, and a guy 12 years old is driving them. And what they do is they drive them to the area, Turtle Pond, for one in behind the subdivisions where there is no roads, it's hills and mud and all that kind of crap. So now what they're doing, the provincial government is saying you can drive your off-road from your home. Instead of having a trailer, you can drive it on the provincial road to get to that place. And we've got probably 50 kids in town that drive these things with their helmet. They're all got all their suits on and there's no registration on them. I don't believe there's insurance. I've never heard anybody stopping them.
That's not what they're required to do.
They're not plated.
They're supposed to be licensed to drive them. They're on the roadway. Have a driver's license and undoubtedly insurance. And if they're not doing that, they're on the roadways, then police need to take action. It's my understanding. I stand to be corrected, but anything further? Warden Robinson?
I sort of started this discussion, but I really don't think we have much of a say, right? If the province has said it's allowed, it's allowed.
I agree with the warden, but in my own personal opinion, I think it's a huge mistake. There's a lot of people out there that disobey, not just kids, but adults. They disobey the rules and regulations for vehicles and motorcycles and skidoos and ATVs and everything now. So by allowing them on the roadway, they think that they're now all of a sudden going to start obeying all the rules. I doubt it, but that's just my opinion. Anything else on this one? All in favor of the recommendation? It's carried. Thank you. We're on to the Infrastructure Division report. Is Mr. Hanrath there?
Here, thank you, Chair.
Why? Okay, sorry. My chair today, or my director today is very demanding. He needs a 5-minute break, so I think we should be able to finish up in about 10 or 15 minutes, so I don't want to break for lunch. So if we could just have a few minutes break, and we'll get back to Mr. Hanrath's report as soon as possible. Thank you. Thank you. We're back. We had moved on to the Infrastructure Division report from Mr. Hanrath. Mr. Hanrath, if you want to give us your report, please.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to committee, I present the Infrastructure Division report. Item number 1 is an information item. It's the project carryover for contract PWC-2020-09, which is the rehabilitation of County Structure B202 Cameron Street Bridge. This one was already discussed by Lee in his report. As he stated, the delivery of the superstructure for the bridge was delayed due to COVID and other unforeseen circumstances. Once the superstructure was delivered and installed, temperatures were not ideal to continue the project. The contractor was given an extension to June 30th, 2021 to complete the project. Follow-on works will be funded, were anticipated to be funded through savings on 2021 capital projects, but I understand the resolution is going forward to the budget meetings next week. With that, Chair, I'll ask if there are any questions or concerns regarding the information item.
Thank you. Mr. Perkins has some comments on this one before we ask the committee.
So thank you, Chair, and through you, and sorry to interrupt you, Taylor. I just actually spoke to Mr. Foss, and this is a perfect example. So this $170,000 that's remaining on Cameron Street Bridge will actually be put into capital reserve for next year, and that's where the funding is coming from. So they're carrying the 2020 money over into 2021, and that 170 will be covered from there. It won't come from our capital projects next year at all. So there'll be no pushing of projects next year. So I thank Mr. Foss for that. So sorry, Taylor. Carry on.
That's good to know.
Chair muted.
Any questions from by committee on item number 1? Seeing none, we're going to item number 2, which is a resolution. So I need a mover and seconder for the resolution, and then we'll have Mr. Hanrath give us the information. Moved by Councillor Lynch, second by Councillor Keller. Thank you. Mr. Hanrath, please.
So item number 2 is the resolution for County Road 512, which is Queen Street, for the retaining wall near the Calvary Baptist Church. The recommendation is that the Operations Committee recommend that staff discuss the option of a cost-sharing agreement with the Township of Killaloe, Haggerty, and Richards to replace the existing failing stone wall with a continuous reinforced concrete retaining wall. The background here attached as Appendix in 1 is a memorandum received December 1st, 2020 from Borden, Ladner, Gervais, BLG, stating their legal opinion regarding the responsibility of the stone retaining wall in front of the Calvary Baptist Church along County Road 512 Queen Street, Killaloe. The memo concludes that without evidence proving who was responsible for construction of the wall, a certain answer for who is responsible for maintaining and repairing the wall cannot be given. However, given that the wall is located within the county's right-of-way and the principle of affixation, the county could be held responsible for maintenance and repairs. A meeting was conducted at the church between myself, Mr. Perkins, Mr. Hawley of Killaloe, Haggerty, and Richards, as well as Pastor Mike Andrews and Mr. Weber Hubert from the Calvary Baptist Church. At the meeting, staff were advised that the wall was constructed in 2001 by Eaton Landscaping and was contracted by the Village of Killaloe. However, staff are still continuing to search for supporting data on this. County staff have conferred with Mr. Hawley regarding the legal opinion obtained by the county.
Thank you. Questions or comments? Councillor TJ.
Thank you very much. I just want to notify the Operations Committee that I have not brought this to council for their consideration. My road superintendent indicates he doesn't feel there is an obligation for the municipality. The right-of-way covers that whole area, that whole wall. So legally, we feel that we're not obligated to. So I would, I'm just telling you that I have not asked council whether or not they're even interested in becoming a partner in it. So I think though that the county can start to discuss it with our staff, and then the staff would have to bring it to council for consideration. So I'm not saying yes or no, but I haven't brought it forward, just that the road super feels we do not have an obligation towards any portion of that retaining wall, but it would be council's decision. So I'm okay with that recommendation, just that I want to make sure the operation committee knows that council hasn't agreed to anything. It would have to come forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bennett?
Thank you, Chair. I'm still sitting, as I have from day one, very uncomfortable with this. I cannot bring myself around to thinking how the county doesn't think that they're responsible for that retaining wall. That was something that was turned over to the county, not Kittilou, Haggerty, Richards. It was turned over to the county when that highway bypass went in, and that roadway, it was turned from the province over. So the county has a body receive that, and that retaining wall is a structure, and it's an engineered structure that was part of that roadway. So in my mind, and I'm going to be very, very difficult to convince me that the county has to repair that to an engineered standard. Lee has brought proposals together before about regrade, but without seeing engineered certificates to show that is going to work, or our retaining wall, and in whole, not in part, because it's like any structure. If it's a continuous part of the structure, it's part of the main structure to begin with. And I can almost guarantee you that I can't find any paperwork to go along that says that the Department of Highways give any of that retaining wall to the Township of Kittilou, Haggerty, Rich. They give it to the county, and the paperwork. Well, Paul's got his hand up, so maybe he's going to tell me I'm wrong. But I'm expressing my views that if it's an asset of the county should be looking after it.
Thank you. Mr. Morrow, please.
Thank you, Chair. I believe that this resolution speaks to reconstructing the wall through an engineered standard, so it's not regrading. This resolution speaks to reconstructing the wall. The one question I do have, though, the opinion from legal counsel, and I absolutely accept the fact that the legal opinion has said that the county owns this wall within its right of way. The small portion of the wall, though, I want to ask Mr. Perkins, is there any portion of this wall that would not be within our right of way that maybe belong to the municipality? So the Queen Street portion, that's what I'm thinking that where the conversation will take place.
Mr. Morrow, please. I'm sorry, Mr. Perkins.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. Yes, thank you, Paul, Mr. Moore, for clarifying that. Yes, the same legal opinion that puts the wall on the county's right of way, also the same legal opinion puts a portion of the road wall on Call Street to the town of Kittilou, Haggerty, Richards. And back to Councillor Bennett's problem, the problem is not the wall. We attain the fact that there was a continuous concrete wall there. Someone removed that wall, and unfortunately we can't ascertain who did it. So now we're past all that, and we just want to go meet with the town and say, 20 meters this belongs to you, 200 meters this belongs to us. We are going to hopefully get approval to repair it properly, a proper engineered continuous concrete structure wall that was there prior to this stone wall that was installed, which is aesthetically pleasing but not functional. And that's our goal going forward. So again, with the legal opinion that's attached, will show that the wall that's on Queen Street does indeed fall within the county's right of way, which I totally agree that the MTO put it there and it is ours. I don't have an issue with that. And the section that's on Call Street actually is in the town of Kittilou, Haggerty's right of way. So they would have some responsibility for cost share of this wall, or the potential is we can just replace to the county boundary, county right of way, and leave the rest, which I mean wouldn't look very pleasing And this is an effort to hopefully work with Killaloe, Haggerty, Richards to solve a problem that someone else created that the county is going to repair.
So I think it just comes down, the county, I think at this point, although the wall that's there now was, should never have been put there in the first place, but it was. Replaced a wall, I would assume, that was starting to deteriorate, with a new type of wall, a fancier wall, which, as you can see by the photographs we've had, is just not, it wasn't designed suitably at all. So, and I think with the county realizing that the portion on the county road belongs to the county and should be replaced by the county. There's still a portion on Call Road?
Yeah,
Call Road
Call Street.
that is within Killaloe, Haggerty, Richards possession. So I guess what the resolution is saying is, okay, we need to go to the council at Killaloe and say, we're going to be doing this work. Do you want to pick up the cost to go around on Call Street? If they do, that would make it much more pleasing to the eye. If they don't, then the county would, I think, just be obligated to go to that point on Call Street and end it there. And I'm going to ask Councillor TJ, is that your understanding, that the discussion with your council would be, or?
Well, that's right. Now, my road super, I spoke with him about this morning, and he's still indicating that he doesn't feel any portion of that would be our responsibility. So we're going to have to get a legal opinion. The other thing is, I just haven't gone to my council, so I'm not saying yes, no, or maybe. I'm just saying I haven't talked to them, so I'm not at liberty to say we're not prepared to do anything, we're prepared to do anything. But I am going to be asking for a legal opinion to see whether or not we're obligated, and even if we aren't, maybe council would be willing. I just don't know those answers, Tom. So I'm okay with the motion, because you're saying that motion is not obligating KH&R to anything. The motion is just saying we'll talk to your staff and we'll get a legal opinion, and then we'll know better where we're standing.
Right. Okay, Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Chair. But here's my final thought on it, and I won't harp on it anymore till the next time it comes up to committee. So the whole situation with me is, if you can find a structural engineer that's going to put his ticket on there that says that wall that turns 90 degrees to the main wall along Queen Street does not require a retainer tied into that wall for structural value, I'm okay with that. And then it may have to switch somewhat to ownership. But I can guarantee you, if we could find paperwork that structural wall that goes on to Killaloe, Haggerty, Richards right now was the structural part of that retaining wall, and nobody could convince me otherwise, say that that's not required there, unless somebody's going to stamp it off that they can put structure to that retaining wall without that secondary wall.
Thank you. Councillor TJ.
I just want to thank Councillor Bennett for being very informative about our situation. Dave, thank you. You know a lot more about roads. I haven't built a road by myself, so I count on my road super, the legal team, and of course, Mr. Bennett. Thank you, Dave.
Any other questions or comments about the resolution? All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Mr. Hanrath, please, we're on to bylaws, County Road, River Road, Road Access Agreement, and there's a recommendation, so I need a mover and seconder, please. Councillor Hunt, Councillor Keller, Mr. Hanrath, please.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to committee. The recommendation here is that the Operations Committee recommend to County Council that a road access agreement between 1230381 Ontario Inc. and the County of Renfrew be approved, and further that a bylaw to authorize the execution of the road access agreement be passed. And the background here is that 1230381 Ontario Inc. is the owner of property adjacent to County Road 1, River Road, in the geographic township of Horton. The owners have made application for the severance of a new lot fronting onto River Road. The creation of the new lot has been granted on the condition that the applicant enters into an agreement with the county regarding access to County Road 1 due to the restrictions in entrance spacing. The new lot is described as part of Lot 7, Concession 9 in the geographic township of Horton, shown as parts 1 and 2 on the registered plan 49R 19627. Mutual access will serve as the access point for both the severed lot and the retained lands. The new lot could not meet the county's requirement for entrance spacing. It is therefore necessary to have a road access agreement identifying the entrance for the lot described above and shown on the registered plan 49R 19627 attached as Appendix IN2. A map showing the property is attached to this report as Appendix IN3. The road access agreement is to be registered and run with the title of the land so that the future owners are aware of the road access agreement.
Thank you. Questions or comments? All in favor of the recommendation? Thank you. It's carried. We're on to item 4, County Road 6, Lockmanor Road, acquisition of road widening land. It's also a recommendation. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Lynch, Councillor Hunt. Mr. Hanrath, please.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to committee. The recommendation here is that the Operations Committee recommend to County Council that a bylaw be passed to acquire parts 6, 7, and 8 on registered plan 49R 19635 from 1230381 Ontario Inc. for the sum of $500, and further that parts 6, 7, and 8 on registered plan 49R 19635 be dedicated as part of the public highway upon registration of the transfer documents. In the background here, in the winter of 2017, 1230381 Ontario Inc. submitted an application for a severance of property along a portion of County Road 6, Lockmanor Road, within part of Lot 6, Concession 5 in the geographic township of Horton. As a condition of consent and in accordance with corporate policy PW12, right-of-way protection and acquisition, the applicants are to convey road widening lands to the County of Renfrew fronting along Lockmanor Road. The property to be transferred to the county is identified as parts 6, 7, and 8 on registered plan 49R 19635, which is attached as Appendix IN4. As compensation for the land, the county is to pay fair market value, which has been established as $5,000 per acre. With the total area of land to be conveyed measured at only 0.097 acres, the total value of land is $485. However, in accordance with corporate policy PW12, the minimum compensation shall be $500. In addition, the County of Renfrew will pay for its portion of the legal survey as well as the legal fees associated with the transfer. A map has been included as Appendix IN5 to depict the area of the lands to be acquired.
Thank you. Questions or comments? All in favor of the resolution? Carried. Thank you. Item 6, Adamson Bromley.
No, 5.
Oh, did I miss 5? Okay. Item 5, a recommendation, County Road 512, Foymont Road, acquisition of road widening land. Mover and seconder for the recommendation, please. Councillor Bennett, Councillor Hunt, Mr. Hanrath, please.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to committee. The recommendation here is that the Operations Committee recommend that a bylaw be passed at County Council to acquire Part 2 Unregistered Plan 49R 19650 from Sandra Elizabeth Whitmore for the sum of $500. And further, that Part 2 Unregistered Plan 49R 19650 be dedicated as part of the public highway upon registration of the transfer documents. The background here is in the spring of 2020, Sandra Wigmore submitted an application for a severance of property along a portion of County Road 512, Foymount Road, within part of Lot 7, Concession 1, in the geographic township of South Algona, in the township of Bonnechere Valley. As a condition of consent and in accordance with corporate policy number PW12, right-of-way protection and acquisition, the applicants are to convey road winding lands to the County of Renfrew fronting along Foymount Road. The property to be transferred to the county is identified as Part 2 on Registered Plan 49R 19650, which is attached as Appendix IN6. As compensation for the land, the county is to pay fair market value, which has been established as $1,100 per acre. But the total area of land to be conveyed measured at only 0.178 acres. The total value of the land is $195.80. However, in accordance with corporate policy PW12, the minimum compensation shall be $500. In addition, the County of Renfrew will pay for its portion of the legal survey, as well as the legal fees associated with the transfer. A map has been included as Appendix IN7 to depict the area of the lands to be acquired.
Thank you. Questions or comments? Councillor TJ.
Just for a point of interest to Lee, it says that the county's fair market value has been established at $1,100 per acre. Is that consistent throughout the whole county? Or is that just for this township, I guess, Bonnechere Valley? So are you recommending that everybody would get $1,100 per acre anywhere in the county? I mean, excluding waterways, obviously, because that's more money. Just a point of interest for me.
Mr. Perkins, please.
Through you to Councillor TJ. This is actually, if I read it correctly, is the market value of wherever it is. Is that correct, Taylor? Be corrected.
Yes, so it's based on the appraised property value of that specific property.
Any other comments? All in favor of the recommendation? Carried, thank you. Item 6, Adamson Bromley Culvert Assumption. There's also a recommendation. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Lynch, Councillor Hunt. Mr. Hanrath, please.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to committee. The recommendation is that the Operations Committee recommend to County Council that bylaw be passed to amend Schedule B of Bylaw 10-15 to add County Structure C337, Berlanquette Creek Culvert to the county road system effective February 1st, 2021. The background here is attached as Appendix IN8 is a letter from the Township of Admaston Bromley requesting that the County of Renfrew assume a culvert replaced in 2019. The new culvert is located on Culhane Road, approximately 0.1 kilometers northeast of Foy Road, and crosses over Berlanquette Creek. The culvert was designed to meet the requirements of the Canadian Highway Bridge Design Code, as well as corporate policy PW02, Bridge Design and Construction. As per policy PW02, all highway structures designed in accordance with the provisions of this policy, meeting the definition of a bridge, shall, upon the recommendation of the county engineer and with the approval of the Operations Committee and County Council, be given a county bridge status. The Township of Admaston Bromley has provided all design and construction information for the culvert, and county staff have reviewed the culvert and found it to be in good condition.
Sorry, my phone went off. I thought I'd already turned it off. Any questions or comments on the assumption of the culvert? I just have one question, Mr. Hanath. I'll ask for clarification. Does the 3 meter size, does that have to be one culvert, or if you had 2 culverts side by side or 3 culverts side by side?
So if you have multiple culverts within 1 meter of each other, they're considered in one span. So the 3 meters counts for the multiple culverts.
Thank you very much. All in favor of the recommendation? Carried, thank you.
Just in the essence of time, just tell Taylor just to read the recommendation here for number 7.
Okay.
Please.
Bridge load posting bylaw, mover and seconder, please. Councillor Bennett. Councillor Hunt. Mr. Hanrath, please, and just the recommendation, not the background.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Chair. Thank you, Chair. Through you to committee. The recommendation is that the Operations Committee recommend to County Council that bylaw 101-18 restricting the weight of vehicles passing over bridges in the County of Renfrew be repealed, and further that a new bylaw for the same purpose be passed with the updated load restrictions as shown in Schedule A.
You. Questions or comments? All in favor of the recommendation? Carried. Thank you. I believe that's the end of your report, Mr. Hanrath.
That is correct. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So now we're moving on to the Operations Division report. And Mr. Perkins is, I guess, going to be delivering that for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and through you to committee. In essence, to save some time here, because DMP is up at 1 o'clock, and actually we're very fortunate that our EA shares, but in this case here, it's not so good for everyone. So information is, item 1 is winter operations, and I'll allow you guys to read through, but you can see there was 3 significant events, and the precipitation is there as well. Spring load restrictions, we're already getting inquiries from a number of places about spring loads, but they are planned to commence on March 1st and extend to May 31st. The county will be placing advertisements in local newspapers to advise haulers of the spring load conditions. Number 3, the quotes and tenders. So a letter has been circulated to all local municipal staff that advising them of the tenders that the county is putting forward, and we hope to have responses back by February 12th, Friday, February 12th, and that will be released from Operations Division starting early March. Number 4 is municipal cooperation. We just wanted to put in a little plug here for our operations group that the Township of Horton had a new plow truck on order, and as you know, it didn't come in. So we do have a spare truck that we can loan out. So there's some hoops to jump through, but thankfully we were allowed to we loan it to them, and they're making use of it, and hopefully it'll come back to our inventory on January 15th. Health and safety. I'm not sure if you people, if committee was aware that one of our staff members at one of the operational divisions tested positive for COVID. Thankfully, the gentleman is in good shape. He has no symptoms as of yet, but of course we had to deep clean the patrol, deep clean his truck, send everybody out for testing, and the one close contact is actually still, even though they all tested negative, the one close contact is actually still in isolation. So we're working with our health and safety group to make sure that works out, but very fortunate that it wasn't worse than it was. So, and that's the information session.
Okay, we'll go back, see if there's any questions on item 1, winter operations. Much better looking reports than in the years past, especially last year. Item 2, spring load restrictions. 3, quotations and tenders. 4, municipal cooperation. 5, health and safety. Saying nothing, on to resolutions. Winter road maintenance agreement, Town of Arden Prior. There is a recommendation, so I need a mover and seconder, please. Councillor Hunt, Councillor Keller. Mr. Perkins, please.
Thank you, Chair. And through you, the recommendation here is whereas the County of Renfrew has granted the local municipalities to construct sidewalks and parking lots in the original right-of-way of the county right-of-way, and whereas the decrease in the right-of-way has resulted in loss of snow storage for winter operations. So be it resolved that the Operations Committee recommend to County Council that the proposed cost increase for snow removal on county roads from the town of Aaron Pryor be rejected, and further that staff be directed to continue negotiating a winter contract as per past practice. The background here is staff has been working closely with senior staff in the town of Aaron Pryor. The town of Aaron Pryor contends that their costs of snow removal on certain county roads, because obviously when we clear the roads, it's cleared to the right. So the snow storage that was there, 20 years ago is now a parking lane or a sidewalk, and it costs the town of Aaron Pryor a significant amount of money to remove that. As you'll see from the background there's some financial implications. The actual rate increase is suggested to be 16.6% increase over what we've offered them. One of the things that we would like to point out that there is no actual policy. The county does enter into contracts with 3 other municipalities, Renfrew, Deep River, to clear county roads. And again, we're back to the point that the roads were just roads 100 years ago. And now because the municipalities have built up and there's sidewalks and there's parking lanes and stuff, we don't feel it necessary to pay this enhanced fee. But with that said, I'll ask questions if there's any.
Questions or comments? Councillor Lynch, please.
Thank you, Chair. Development property, I guess, has started. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But we
Not
have
yet.
just a comment on the snow removal. Our neighbors to the east would be Lanark County has a policy, or let's go a policy for I think there's 5 municipalities within their Lanark County that has roads similar to ours, and they get a subsidy to cover that. And the reason being is the sidewalks, when like Leah's mentioned, when the snow goes down Daniel Street and it goes in front of the motels, then how do the people in the motel get in without the snow being removed from the sidewalk? And that's where we have to take it, rather than push it back onto the county road only to be, back and forth. We're asking for a subsidy. At least that's what I got told when we had the last meeting under operations there. Just to let you know that other municipalities have a subsidy to assist in the snow removal in urban areas, not the rural. Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, it's noted it's in Lanark County, not Renfrew County. And I have one huge concern. I've seen the snow piled up on the sides of Petawawa Boulevard, 7 and 8 feet high, and with the blower having to come along and cut them. But anyway, I'll open the floor up for questions or comments. None.
Oh, sorry.
Mr. Perkins, please.
Thank you, Chair. Through you. Yes, Councilor Lynch is exactly correct. Lanark actually charges $2.51 per meter for sidewalk removal, but where they differ from the county of Renfrew is they actually charge $5,700 per kilometer of road. The county of Renfrew pays $4,300 per center line, or sorry, vice versa. Lanark pays $5,700 per center line of road. The county of Renfrew pays $4,300 per lane kilometer. So Madawaska Boulevard, for example, has 2 lanes. So we pay $8,300 per kilometer for the town of Aaron Pryor to clear that. Whereas if they were in Lanark, they'd only get $5,700. Plus they'd get the $2.51 per meter, which would still be significantly less than the $8,300.
Warden Robinson, please.
Thank you, Chair. And although my video went dark, I've been here for the whole meeting. I do have to leave now, however, because I don't want to miss Premier Ford's announcement. So take care, everyone, and speak to you soon.
Thank you. Okay, so if there's no other comments, Okay, so do we need the resolution read again, or is everybody clear? Okay,
That's for discussion purposes only, Mr. Chair, I think.
okay, but there's a resolution on the floor.
There is.
So all in favor of the resolution? Carried, thank you. Councillor TJ?
I'm going to have to just, I'm diabetic and I have to eat something and I have another
Yeah.
meeting at DNP. So maybe I'll excuse myself and my apologies, but
One more.
is there only
Yeah.
one more item?
One more.
Okay, I'll, if you don't mind, then I'm going to be munching just because
Go
I
ahead.
don't want to go into a coma. So anyways, thank you.
No, you just go when you have to go, Janice, we understand. So I need a mover and seconder on the report as a whole. New business?
One item. Item
Okay.
6.
Oh, there's something else under operations? Oh, sorry, it was on the next page. Item 7, it's a bylaw, so I need a mover and seconder for the bylaw. Councillor Bennett, Councillor Lynch, Mr. Perkins, please.
Thank you, Chair, and through you to committee. This one is the winter road maintenance agreement with the town of Deep River. So the recommendation here is that the Operations Committee recommend to County Council that a bylaw be passed to authorize the warden and clerk to execute the 10-year winter maintenance agreement from 2020-21 to 2030-31 with the town of Deep River. And the background is there for your approval, but again, it's the standard contract that we do with town of Renfrew and the Deep River. Thank you, Chair.
Muted, Chair.
All in favor of the bylaw? It's carried, thank you. Now I need a mover and seconder for the report as a whole. Councillor Keller, Councillor Bennett, all in favor? It's carried, thank you. Any new business? Councillor Bennett?
Sorry, Chair, I didn't bring this forward when I should, but I do want to thank Lee on behalf of the township for the use of the truck, and have to say that the county policy is certainly a big bonus when we get ourselves in a position. I do have to say that he took us out of trouble, that we got ourselves into ourselves. We took that our delivery date was going to be the end of October and chose to sell our asset off at that time because we believed the new one was coming in, and unfortunately the company couldn't supply. And our first option was to go back to the county and ask them if that was possible, and Lee certainly accommodated. And we want to thank all of county for allowing that to happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Similar thing happened in McNabb Braeside a few years back. I guess Mr. Boland was the director at the time when one of our trucks went in a steep, down a roadway in a steep gully and left the road and was destroyed. And the county of Renfrew stepped up and loaned us a plow truck for, I think it was probably a month or so before our new truck came in. So yes, the county bailed us out too. So thanks for your comments. There's no closed meeting. Date of the next meeting, Tuesday, February the 9th. I need a mover and seconder to adjourn. Councillor TJ, Councillor Hunt, all in favor? Carried. Thanks. We're adjourned. It was lots of discussion today.